hit the go live button.
I am recording.
And we are live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
And tonight we have another very special episode. We have the 1990 movie Memphis Belle. Nathan, do you have a history with the movie Memphis Belle?
I believe I saw this in theaters.
Really? Okay.
I believe I did.
I don't think I did, but I feel like this would have been a family movie because it was definitely a movie in my childhood, but I feel like I just saw it on cable a lot, but I don't know.
Yeah, I believe I saw this in theaters. With I think we all did.
Okay.
Don't remember though. I mean, just watching it, it was like almost like watching a new movie. It was like, oh yeah, some of the stuff stood out to me, but some of it was like, yeah, okay, I guess this was it.
Yeah, I remembered a lot of moments in it. Like I remembered all the big moments, but it was like all the detail stuff was like, oh, okay, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I realized that like the bombardier, like the pilots are on top of the plane and the bombardier is like in the nose of the plane, which I guess I didn't really think of or realize until this viewing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because when I got into models and building models and talking to guys that build models, and and our model club's named after the not what were the planes in this? Ours is a Liberator.
This is a B-17 fighting.
Yeah, so this was the one before the Liberator.
Okay.
And by before, I mean each successive plane in the American arsenal of freedom at that time became more cost effective to build as they went on. So the Liberator was kind of the last generation of like this type of bomber, and it was the most cost effective. But yeah, the Flying Fortress was before it. It's a little more durable than Liberator, from what I understand. But it also
the third most produced plane, or at least heavy bomber of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, as I understand, they were a little more because they said the Liberator was the box that the B-17 came in was the joke. Because it was I don't know. There were some different. The guys in the club would know. I'm not an aircraft guy, really. Yeah. They would know. And then when you see things in this movie, it's like, oh yeah, the bombardier had to fly the plane. That's how the Norden bomb sight worked, was you just turn it over to him. He's just sighting through an optic, guiding the plane, not evading flak or anything. He's focused in on one thing. Remember, the most expensive invention of World War II was not the A-bomb. It was the Norden bomb sight. They actually spent more money as a project.
I mean, yeah, they built. I mean, like, at the time this thing came out, this might as well have been a spaceship, and we had hundreds of thousands of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were just sending them out in full force to bomb in daylight. It was a pretty ridiculous thing to do, because the British bombed at night because they didn't want to take fires, but they also missed their targets a lot.
Yeah, there was definitely a difference in philosophically between Bomber Command and the Army Air Corps. The British were more like, yes, more napalm, more fused bombs, and at night.
Yeah.
And we're like more like, no, we'll drop during the day. We want you to see us coming. We'll annihilate your cities, but it's like it sends a message too. It's like, stop fighting us. We can just do this all day. We'll just keep sending people to their death all day. So yeah.
And like I saw like a mini documentary on the History Channel about the dam busters, which that's kind of interesting. Where it's like also a night thing, but you basically drop this barrel in the water and you skip it to the dam. It hits the dam, floats down, and when it hits the depth, it blows up. And it's like, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, they were gonna remake the Dam Busters movie. I think Peter Jackson was gonna.
Yeah, I think you were talking about that before, but they never got to it.
No, it never. Well, yeah, there's a few things that in today's.
That's the one where the plane is a racial epithet, and it's like, I can't do that. And they're like,
yeah,
but it's history. But I mean,
well, no, the racial epithet was the code. if the bomb detonated, because the racial epithet was the name of the mascot of the group that they were with, the bomber group, and it was a black dog. So you can guess what the name of it was, and they were saying this over radio. If a success is indicated by that word, there's no script writing that's going to get you around that in the modern times. So,
I mean, yeah, you just change it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but everyone's going to know. It's like, well, this is what he's supposed to be saying.
Because like I was like, because as far when I saw this movie when I was a kid, as far as I know, like it was just pure history brought to life. And of course, if you look up, I didn't go that deep. I just looked up on the Wikipedia page, and it's basically like, yeah, everything's different except for the name of the plane.
Yeah. Well, this is one of those movies, what I call, I think, and I'm going to say this was the first one of a trend that got bigger, where you started compositing World War II into, because it used to be you made World War II movies, sometimes with the actual guys that fought in World War II. Now we're getting into the 90s. Those guys are aging out of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what I call compositing history, where we're going to do like a Saving Private Ryan was nothing but a composite of different things that happened. That's not like a real story about real people.
Yeah.
It is like something like this happened, but it was with the Sullivan brothers, and they were in the Navy, and the ship got sunk or something. So it was kind of different. This is like, okay, it's a real plane. These missions happened, but we're going to say all these things happened to this one plane.
Yeah.
So we're going to, like, again, composite everything together and tell what I call like the spirit of World War II. But these people would be completely psychotic if it all happened to them.
It's the spirit of the propaganda of World War II.
Well, yeah,
because Saving Private Ryan isn't war great. Saving Private Ryan is like the line between glory and emptiness is very thin.
Yeah. You will have these experiences and you will regret them later.
Whereas this is like, oh, those good old American boys just doing the right thing.
But it's a kind of a genre of,
but it's like propaganda out of time, so you don't feel that, like, it doesn't feel wrong. It just feels like, oh, that's quaint. Like someone's having a dream.
Yeah, it's what you would call a harmless jingoism.
Yes.
It's like, well, the death has already happened. The violence is over. The war was won. The treaties are signed. It's when it becomes vulgar propaganda. Propaganda is when if we like do pre-war movies.
Yeah. And this was in the Iraq War, the first Iraq War didn't happen at this time, so this wasn't some weird side buildup of fascism to like get everybody behind a war or anything like that. It just happened. Like, people like, this is an interesting story. Like, World War II's like 50 years ago, so let's do something interesting with it. So
yeah, like I said, this was the beginning of what I call composite history filmmaking, where we're not going to make things up entirely. We're not going to go full Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
But we're gonna put a lot of things together and make them seem like they fit.
But I mean, they still make World War II movies now, but now it's just like how ugly and real it was, and like how life was just thrown away at the drop of a hat.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whereas like this is like almost classic World War II movies where it's like it's good against evil.
Yeah, there's clear good and evil here. They never talk about the Soviets once. Not mentioned. Oh, our allies, the Soviets. Like, oh no.
But this is also like American propaganda through the eyes of the British. So maybe they just have that distance to it too. So
yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I mean, we were using their country as an airstrip, so
yeah. So director's Michael Caton Jones or Caton Jones? I don't know, Caton Jones? Probably Caton Jones. Yeah, he's Scottish.
Yeah.
Which he makes a lot of okay movies.
Yeah.
What stuff do I recognize from his? Well, Memphis Belle's the first thing.
Jackal, of course.
Yeah, Jackal's not a good movie, but it has a lot of great scenes.
Yeah, the Jackal's like a lot of cool ideas. City by the Sea.
Yeah, kind of
with Frances McDormand and De Niro.
Yeah, it's got De Niro. I remember that being kind of a disappointing movie.
Yeah, it is.
I remember This Boy's Life. That's a crazy movie. I remember Rob Roy had some Oscar buzz, but that might have just been for its like costuming, because any kind of period piece will get an Oscar nomination for costumes. So, um, yeah, and had the unfortunate he unfortunately took up the Basic Instinct 2.
Oh no.
And it seems like everything he did after that was, oh, it looked like he got into some British TV, and then I don't recognize any of his other movies. Although Asher looks vaguely interesting as like a weird Ron Perlman hitman movie where he screws up and tries to atone for like a bad hit or something. But has a low rating, but it seems like a good idea. It's like, I'll watch Ron Perlman lead a movie where
Yeah.
he's a bad assassin. It was shot by David Watkin. Oh wait, no, do I have that right?
Cinematography is David Watkins.
Okay, yeah. Which yeah, I think he like was shooting movies back in the 50s. So yeah, he has a long history. Which I guess he actually created a bunch of stuff. Like, they just have like grids of light hanging up in the. Apparently he invented that or whatever.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I'm not sure if he invented a light grid, but something specific to filmmaking. So yeah, he was just like he shot a lot of stuff. He shot a lot of this guy's movies. I think he died in 2008, but yeah, he had a good.
He was born in the 20s. So.
Yeah, so he had a good 50-year career.
Yeah.
British cinematographer. So what was his biggest movie? Because he has some stuff where it's like, oh yeah, okay, that. Oh yeah, Chariots of Fire.
Chariots of Fire would have to be.
Which I only know for the Vangelis score. I actually don't know if that's a good movie or not. So.
It's not bad.
Okay,
it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
It's about running, right?
Yeah. It says it's in the Olympics.
Okay.
In the 20s, I think. Yeah.
The thing that actually like directly correlates this movie is he shot Catch-22, which if you've never seen that, it's an amazing. That's an amazing piece of cinematography. That movie is fucking crazy. Like they have. Like, it's also about World War II and bombers and stuff. They'll have a scene where guys are driving in a Jeep, all in a one shot, driving a Jeep, delivering dialogue, planes landing in the background, planes crashing in the background, all one shot. It's like, at any moment, this could get screwed up. We'll lose the shot. They also had, like, a crazy cameraman on that who, like, lost his leg during filming of Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Okay.
Went on this movie just like, no, I'm a badass. Decided he didn't need to be strapped in, and the airplane's getting photography, fell out of the airplane and died.
Okay.
So, this guy didn't. So, yeah. If you haven't seen, Catch-22 is an amazing movie for cinematography.
It's also an amazing book to watch, to read, and then watch the movie.
Okay.
Because it's cool enough. It's different enough that both are interesting. But it's like if you read the book and then watch the movie, it's like, oh, the movie that seems kind of weird. It's like it makes a lot more sense. It's like, oh, they're visualizing the book in a great way. Like it's not easy what they're doing. But yeah, those are like good companion things.
Okay, because I think I've attempted to read the book, but it's kind of heady. Where it's like, yeah, like you said, like some of the what would you call that? Like bipolarism of the main character makes more sense in a visual capacity than in a novel. So,
yeah, Joseph Hell Catch-22 is a lot. It's not as like, oh, I'm being brutalized like when I was reading Gravity's Rainbow, and it's like, I'm just not smart enough for this or something. But I did get through it. It wasn't quite as brutal as Gravity's Rainbow, but it's in the same vein. But if you like watch the movie and then read the book, it's like, oh, okay, I see. I get it.
Yeah, because I always heard it as
Catch-22 is it's like, yeah, this is what the world became after World War II. It's like exactly what this became.
Yeah, because I only knew it as a phrase. The phrase Catch-22. Where it's
that's right. I forget. Yeah, it is.
And then I was like, oh, it's a book and it's a movie. It's like, so what is Catch-22? It's basically, it's like a no-win scenario. It's like taking the test means you're not. That's what. Well, yeah, it's the thing. Is like the guy has to take a test to prove he's insane. But like they say, they conclude that taking the test proves you're not insane, and so there's like no win scenario.
Yeah, it's kind of catch-22 is like circular logic
Yeah.
essentially, as I understand it. So,
Did you ever watch that modern one they did where it was like, who's the ER guy? George Clooney did.
they did a modern catch-22?
Yeah, it might have been a
No.
TV show.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know about that.
Where was it? Let me see if. No, it's a movie, 2019. I don't know. I don't see. Maybe he didn't do it. Yeah, they did do a modern one. I don't know. I don't know who these directors are.
Oh, because I knew George Clooney did a modern version of like.
Oh, he's in it.
Oh.
Okay, it was a TV. It was like a miniseries.
Oh, okay. Because I know he did a modern version of Failsafe.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Shot as a well, it was actually because it was originally shot as it was a play.
Yeah.
And they kind of shot it as like on a set, but it was like a play. That's the one George Clooney did.
Oh,
because
go
ahead.
It was a Hulu show, so that's why you've never seen it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I can only pay $500 a month for cable entertainment. Not, I'm limited. So yeah. Because I mean, everyone loves, and I love also, Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
But really, like my favorite actual like Cold War is Failsafe, because it's like it's much. There's almost no humor in it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's about incinerating cities. There's no and people going crazy thinking about it. That's what I like about Failsafe. I like the art of Dr. Strangelove, but I like the lack of art of Failsafe.
This is written by Monty Merrick. Which says he was born in Portland and died in California. So I don't know where he spent most of his days. But this is kind of his only movie. I know of Mr. Baseball. I know of 8 Seconds. That's a movie I hear people talk about in like grade school. Never watched it. It's like a bull riding movie. I just remember it's like the scene where the guy gets gored in the balls. Like that's all I heard about that movie. So.
Okay, yeah.
His first movie was Staying Together, which was before this and had Sean Astin in it. Because Sean Astin used to be like a child actor, and really he's still a child actor in this movie. But Sean Astin has a weird. I was actually
surprised to see. I was like, he was back then. Wow.
Yeah, he has a weird career. So. Yeah, because he was like, I think he was even like up for like the role in Stand By Me and stuff. Like he was like an 80s child actor.
Huh.
And then kind of had a weird like 90s run where he's like, Rudy and stuff like that, where it's like that was a pretty big movie, and then just got immortalized in the Lord of the Rings movies, and then just had a really eccentric career after that, where he just like, well, I don't have to do anything ever again, so he kind of just did what he wants. Also does a ton of voice work, so
well, that's
and just he has like the weirdest role. You ever see 50 First Dates, that Adam Sandler movie?
Is that the one where the woman doesn't have a memory?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I have seen that.
He's like this weird bodybuilder in that movie where he's like wearing like neon mesh clothes and stuff like that. Like, that's a weird choice.
I'm trying to, because he looks like he's wearing a motorcycle riding outfit all the time, right?
I'd say more bike ride. He's like a fitness guy or whatever in the movie. I think.
Oh yeah, bike ride. I'm sorry. Yeah, like the guys that ride. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like mountain bike riders or whatever. Or
yes. I was thinking more of the guy who's the French one. What's the French one where they ride the bike?
Tour de Force. Or no.
Tour de France.
The Pelotons. Or no, Peloton is a group of bike riders.
Yeah, it's just those things where those guys are like just pedaling in insane groups, and then one guy's tire gives out, and it's like dominoes.
Oh yeah.
And it's like just like a $2 million worth of really expensive bikes were just destroyed. It's like those are like, as much as cars.
Yeah, it's like that in soccer. I hear people do a deep dive on that sport, and it sounds so interesting. It's like I'm never gonna watch it, but it's like the stuff like that, and like the weird politics around it. I guess the thing that they emphasize is like the way they shoot it is like it's actually an incredibly like weird thing to shoot because like they're traveling across the country on the bike and it just looks like a guy in a bike, but you don't realize like that dude's doing like 50 miles an hour on a bicycle.
Yeah.
And you really don't notice till like they pull alongside those motorcycles that are kind of like keeping things in order and then and like can hand off supplies and stuff like that. And it's like, no, that's a motorcycle going 50 miles an hour, and here's a guy on a bike going 50 miles an hour, and if you crash on that, that's a bad time.
Yeah.
And the weird physics behind it, where you can get like 10 guys lined up in a row, and you like do that weird like thing where you like go stiff as a board, like put your balls right on the seat, and then you just like move forward because of physics. Which I don't think is allowed in the. I don't think they allow that, but it's you can find videos about it.
Huh.
Um, yeah, I think because it's like it reduces your drag. Because if you're sitting up, then like your whole body's doing drag. But if you just like sit in a straight line, like your head and your shoulders are the drag, and then you don't even have to pedal. It's just like you just get into like the you get in the wake of other people where like they're just pushing all the air out of the way and you're pushing even less air out of the way and you just like start to just move past them. You go like 10 miles an hour faster than them with no pedaling.
Huh.
Again, sounds
Great.
interesting, but I'm never gonna watch it. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, yeah, what's a leg of the Tour de France like? Is that like a 3 hour watch or what's going on there? um Let's see. Okay, cast Matthew Modine, Eric Stoltz, Tate Donovan, which there's more famous people. This actually has a weirdly strong cast of like character actors, people you know, but nobody's really a star here. um, so I guess we'll get into it. We have Act One. We get titles with air rushing sounds, where we get like the production company stuff here. Then we get text. In the summer of 1943, a fierce battle raged in the skies over Europe. Every day, hundreds of young airmen faced death as they flew bombing raids deep into enemy territory. Fewer and fewer were coming back. Is this the plane that has... Oh, now I forget that effect. Is that the survivor bias?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be. This might be this. Oh wait, no, that's a 2-engine plane, so no, it's not that one. I don't know. Do you know the survivorship bias thing?
No, what's that?
It's usually shown up as a picture of like it's a picture of an airplane with a bunch of like red dots to indicate where the bullet holes were, and so one rule of thinking would think like, oh, these planes came back from getting shot up. Where all the bullet holes are, we better put more armor there so that the planes will have more survivability. Well, that's actually the opposite of what you do because all the planes that didn't come back, they got shot in the other areas, the more critical areas.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So that's survivorship bias because you base, the next building of your airplane based on the planes that come back, which you should be basing on the planes that didn't come back. Which gets used in a lot of different things and probably inappropriately a lot of places. But yeah, it's a meme to have it show up. It's just a plane, an overshot. No, I'll just send you the link. I think it'll show up almost immediately. Have some dead air time here as we do some clerical work.
There we go.
I think it's scroll down to where it says military, and there should be a shot of the plane.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, That's interesting.
So you can see where it's like it didn't get shot in the engines, the cockpit, and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's like the other planes that didn't come back probably got shot in those areas.
Yeah, basically, yeah, they flew its wingtips off, fired at its center mass, center section. Huh.
um, then we get a POV shot of like flying through clouds with credits, which just looks pretty cool. This is something they did a lot like around this time. Remember, Flight in the Navigator did this.
That's right. Yeah.
It might even be the same footage for all I know.
Flipped it upside down.
Always probably did this. I don't know. I bet The Boy Who Could Fly did this. Then we cut to a bunch of Army guys playing football because at this time there wasn't an Air Force. It was the Army Air Corps, which our grandpa was a part of.
Yes.
He was also a bomber, but he flew B-25 Mitchells over India to go bomb the Japanese in Burma.
Yep. Indochina train assassins.
Which those were medium bombers.
Yes.
There's a voiceover of John Lithgow. There's Lieutenant Colonel Bruce Derringer. None of this is really matters because all these people are fake. I think there's not a real person here that you know of, right? It's all just made up.
Not as far as I know.
Okay. He's basically just reading all their dossiers, so we're introducing the whole crew.
Which is weird because in this movie, I will say, you know who Matthew Modine is, you know who Billy Zane is, you know Eric Stoltz, and you know Sean Austin. None of these people really stick out to you after they're introduced. It's kind of weird.
Well, yeah, because probably at this time Matthew Modine's the biggest known person, and he plays the most bland character, but that must be on purpose. So it's it's I don't want to be the Full Metal Jacket guy here. So, I mean, everybody plays it pretty straightforward. I mean, probably really Harry Connick Jr. is probably the biggest person here, but that's just overall personality. Which he seems pretty young here, which I don't know. He must have, because he was a musician first and then just fell into acting. I don't know. He has a weird career.
Yeah.
It's like him and Chris Isaac. It's pick a lane. I don't know. I don't know.
All over the place. Oh, because it's either that guy was in what was it? What was the big Harry Connick? The alien one. He was what's his name's co-pilot.
Oh, Independence Day.
Yeah, it's everyone's he was in Independence Day. He was also a singer. Huh?
And then he had a morning talk show for 5 years on ABC or something.
Oh, I didn't know about that one. Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're not the audience for. I don't know when's the last time you saw morning talk shows.
I either worked midnights, afternoons, or day shift. So none of those were I was going to watch morning talk shows.
Yeah. One of the guys celebrates a touchdown, I guess, and then a B-17 bomber flies overhead, and we got pan left to reveal the whole airfield, and guys are running to it. They're counting how many planes are coming back. We get text on screen that says England, May 16th, 1943. We cut to air traffic control tower. We got Colonel Craig Harriman here, played by David Strathairn, which I think last time we talked about him was on an episode of Miami Vice, which then that leads back to he's great in The Expanse. So he's a character actor. You've seen him in something. Weird that he basically looks the same. He looks like a younger old man in this compared to The Expanse.
Guy with more less gray hair, and an older man with less gray hair.
He's on the phone with logistics higher ups. They're he's trying to say hey, we're losing bombers, but they just need to keep bombing. They need to keep the pressure up, and so that's what the pressure on him. Somebody says 18 planes in, there are 3 still out. Harriman talks with Derringer. Derringer is impressed with the crew of the Memphis Belle, who are only They're the only crew, well, at least what they say here. They're only crew that's about to complete all their missions, which is like they reach 25 missions and then that's the end of their run. Then they're done with what do you call that? I'm forgetting all the thing. Uh, what the hell do you call that?
Well, they're done with their mission brackets or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's like once once you do so many stuff, then you get sent back home. You're done with your what the hell do you call that? Your deployment or whatever. So,
Tour
um,
of duty, term of
yeah,
enlistment, something. Yeah.
no, not enlistment. It would be like deployment.
Yeah, you basically go home and sell war bonds.
Yeah. Then we see a B-17 that is limping into land. It only has 2 tires down. Well, I guess the back tire is always down, but it only has one of the front tires down. The plane crashes, and well, it doesn't crash. It kind of crashes, slides, goes out the runway, and then it's there for a moment. And it looks like something sprays out, and it looks like, oh, does it have like fire extinguishers on it? And then it just blows up. It's like, oh, I guess not. So.
Yeah, the gas in those planes at that time was very flammable.
Yeah.
They weren't using kerosene then. They were using high octane because those are piston driven rotary engines.
Which like this is actually genius like book ending here because like this will be the same problem that they have at the end. It builds a lot of tension. It's like, oh, will they make it? Then we cut to Derridge's talking to Captain Dennis Dearborn. This is Matthew Modine, who he says he named the plane after a girl he met in Memphis. So the Memphis Belle. Which all these planes have basically pinups painted on the side. They're like half naked. So I'm trying to like were everybody at this time prudes, but because they're going to die, it's like let them have like slight pornographic imagery on their airplane.
These were people like my son's age.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, if you're smart enough to fly this aircraft, and of course they're gonna do like the most risque stuff they can get away with because they're like 22 to 25 years old. It's like, good luck, guys. It's so yeah, it was probably seen as I don't know, was that a uniquely American thing? I don't know. That's a good question. I should probably ask the guys. Because I don't know if the Lancasters had names.
Well, I was looking up some stuff on Wikipedia pages, and it was saying that like basically this captain like commissioned this painting from like a guy from like Life magazine who like drew this stuff, and then they sent it over, and then they painted it on the plane. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know it went like that deep.
Oh yeah.
I just thought they had an artist that was like, hey, I want this naked woman on here.
I have a whole book of art for nose art from planes.
Oh, okay.
There's some crazy stuff out there. There's some like real subliminal stuff. It's like us, it's like obvious, like, oh, it's a real dirty reference. But back then, maybe not so many people knew about
it. Here he's like, yeah, I don't know how this stuff gets split up because like for modern military, there's a very distinctive split between enlisted and officers. Where like to be an officer now, you have to graduate college and you have to go through officer candidates at school, and you have to be like, you have to like submit to get an officer like position. Like you aren't just granted it. Whereas like if you're enlisted, you just enlist, go through boot camp, and here you go.
Yeah.
Whereas like you can apply to be an officer, go through school and training, and then not get a commission anywhere technically. You're not. Although you probably will. They'll probably find that they already invested in you that far. You might as well.
Yeah.
Because here it's like there is a split between the officers and the enlisted, but then I don't know if this is like something of the script getting it wrong, or maybe it could have been a thing at the time. But they're talking about like the officers also enlisted, where it's like, to me, that's like what I know. It's like that's not how that works, but who knows when a war's going on, where it's like, oh, you went to community college for a semester. Here's your commission ship to be a captain. So,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know in like World War II in the Army Air Corps that the thing was, it was like, because like nowadays it's like it's officers on the plane, like those guys, and it's
all pilots are officers.
the enlisted guys are repairing the plane on the
Yes.
ground. That's like how it divides up now. But this time, you just had guys firing guns out of
Yeah.
windows. Like
Yeah.
those guys didn't have to go to college.
No,
So,
no.
so
Yeah.
they're actually serving on the same, basically, school bus with wings on
Yeah.
it, and they're just shooting guns out a window. So, but yeah, also like the buildup of our army at that time from what it was, if you look at like the mid 30s, what the American Army, Navy, Marines, all that was, and then what it became in World War II, it's like that was a rapid uphill advancement in terms of, I mean, you should have seen the tanks we had when we entered World War II. It's like they had stuff that was like in World War One would have been considered buffoonish. It's like, no, that's our main tank. And then by the middle of the war, we had like the Sherman and stuff like that, which was like that was generations ahead of what we had 3 years before. So it was. So yeah, I don't know exactly how that works either at that time, but I'm sure that was just part of the we need to, I mean, how many men died learning to fly these planes?
Yeah.
It was some insane number, like 8,000 people died learning to fly different aircraft just for the American Army Air Corps. So
Yeah, and it's not like there's pilots laying around. There's like
no.
you don't have airports at this time flying people around. I mean, somebody probably has a plane, but I mean, I guess they did have commercial airliners at this time, but there wouldn't be a lot.
Yeah, there just wasn't a big pool to
Yeah.
of like, yeah, we got guys and we can train people quick. It's like, now you can train people to shoot a gun fairly quick. You can't train them to fly aircraft for thousands of miles and bomb cities. So, yeah, so it was probably just whoever can do it and survive the training. Because this is not the best equipment ever conceived and put into action either. It was, we can make this and this works. This solves the problem.
Yeah.
This goes from the paper to the development phase to this is our problem and it solves the problem. And because you got to remember, you're talking about an aircraft that had a run from 1938 to like 1945 and had like 9 different generations within that period.
Yeah.
It just kept improving the guns, the engines, whatever. And it's like, yeah, you don't see things like that anymore. But you don't have a war chewing up all your equipment.
Yeah, yeah.
Because one of the things they figured out very quickly was like, as it comes up in this movie too, with landing gear, one of the biggest problems they had with planes getting shot up is it's like, well, now you're just flying a huge gas can and you can't get the landing gear down. So you're going to drag a metal can down a runway full of gas. It's like, that's going to just explode, kill people. So it's like, oh, we got to design landing gear that can come down after it's shot up. That was a huge problem.
Yeah.
And people worked forever to develop that. And I learned from interesting, like a British guy at work about robotics. It's like, yeah, all the big heavy lift robots that do rapid assembly of cars and stuff, that's all based on Messerschmitt landing gear. I was like, why is that? And he says, because the Germans figured out how to make landing gear that was actually gear driven, not just driven by hydraulics or whatever, that would absolutely deploy no matter what. If there was a big jagged piece of shot up metal in the way, those gears would overpower it and rip through that. And it's like, yeah, and all modern robotic arms are based on Messerschmitt landing gear. I don't know if that's a true story or just anecdotal, but I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was a problem in World War II because it used to be like landing gear was like, oh, you just fill, just a hydraulic shaft and it just fills with fluid and the gear comes out smoothly. And it's like, yeah, what if someone's been firing flak into it? Ooh, that's a problem. Well, then there won't be any hydraulic fluid in it. It's like, well, we got to figure out a way to manually advance it. It's like, oh, we'd have to build a mechanical advantage in there for a guy to actually turn a crank because he's actually turning tons of material or that gear weighs a ton. And it's like, how's the guy going to do that? It's like, I don't know, but you got to figure it out. And also he's got to be able to do it with like whatever he's standing on may or may not be partially shot away too. It's like, wow, we had to solve some problems in a hurry.
Yeah, because I mean, I also like, yeah, these things might also see low tech, but they're like high tech for the time because you're putting a lot of weight in the sky. These things are fast and they fly high, and you gotta have oxygen on board to feed your plane. Yeah, and I also like that if you look at the development of the A-10 Warthog, it's basically just like the most advanced World War II fighter ever built.
The
'Cause-
A-10 Warthog is basically like that Messerschmitt. Was that the one at the end of World War II? The jet fighter.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so an A-10 basically looks a lot like the first jet fighters the Germans had, just
But
because it
it's
solved a lot of problems.
well, I
Like,
mean,
not necessarily it was the best design, but it's like, oh, just put the engines outboard, so if they get shot up, it doesn't burn the plane to the ground, and they're
yeah.
separate from one another. And
Yeah, but it's incredibly simple plane. The only thing complex about it is its gun, because that's the main point of it, to shoot down tanks.
yeah,
And then everything else is basically a World War II plane. It has a ton of backup systems because the plane is meant to get shot to shit because it's a close air fire support plane.
yeah,
The cockpit is built out of a titanium tub that's angled, so like so that the to protect the pilot as much as possible at the lightest weight. Um, the wheels are always half out the whole time, so if the landing gear doesn't go down at all, you can still land the plane.
yeah.
um,
A-10s are cool.
yeah.
Engine bays made to eat missiles too. It's like, yeah, shoot all the missiles you want at it. It'll destroy the engine, but the plane will keep flying as long as the other one's there. What was that? Wasn't there one from Iraq that came back with like most of the wing surface?
Oh
just
yeah,
chewed off
it
of
had
it?
like it had something like 300 bullet holes in it and a hole in the wing where a missile went through it.
Yeah, it was like missing large sections of the wing.
Yeah, and
It's like, how did it
and it
fly?
flew over the ocean back to New Orleans.
Yeah.
All right, just go patch that up. Let's send it back out.
This guy out there with some rivet gun. Okay, you're ready. And they tried to get rid of that thing forever.
Yeah, well, okay, well, most in the first Iraq War, most of those were like flown by like
National Guard.
National Air Guard, yeah, because like the Air Army didn't want it, so they gave it to the National Guard, and a lot of those were flown by like women aviators who are now probably like 5 of them are in Congress right now.
I like the guy that what is the guy destroyed like 40 tanks.
Yeah,
He just came back. It's like, I need more missiles and bullets. It's like, what? It's like there's still lots more out there. What, you were just shooting in a straight line? Actually, yes. They're in a line. It's like, what do they think you? It's like, I don't think they are.
I think they're confused, so we better take advantage of it.
Yeah. Oh, like I said, they called those things Satan's cross. They said it was the devil's cross, because whenever the guys saw it, because you wouldn't know, because all of a sudden, just because they use those against people too, or for air support, it's like, oh, you wouldn't know what was happening, and people around you would start exploding, and then like the plane would fly by, and then 30 seconds later you hear the bah. It's like, oh, it fired a gun at us a long time ago. So we're just now seeing that. It's like, that's insane. Yeah, they love that stuff.
Derringer's like trying to create a positive press story about the war, like the first tour of duty. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Their first bomber crew to complete their tour of duty. Then we have Valentine. This is Billy Zane back when he had hair.
Yeah, it's weird to see Billy Zane with hair.
And not well, I guess he's still weird, but he got weirder as time went on.
Yeah, he was mild. He was Billy Zane light in this movie.
So yeah, he's the bombardier. They also talk about he's being a doctor, which I'll somewhat play later on. Derringer tells a story about like them going home and doing press tours to sell war bonds. And again, these are all the officers from the plane. Because these are the people that are presentable and won't swear at the press or whatever. Dearborn doesn't want people hearing about the press tour because he thinks it's like bad luck, and he just wants to complete the mission. He doesn't want to like make a big deal out of it. It's like, don't celebrate before you get in the end zone. It always ends in a mess. Then we cut to the enlisted guys' barracks, where here we got Eric Stoltz as Danny Boy, which he's like the Irish poet, I guess. We get Harry Connick Jr. as Busby, which he's like the tail gunner. Which does he have like the most kills or something? Because I know like the co-pilot really wants to fire the tail gun, so I'm guessing like he gets the most plane kills or something.
I think it was something like that.
Well, because like the waist gunner guys, they talk about how they've never shot down an airplane, but if you look at the side of the plane, like they've shot down like 8 different Nazi aircraft. So it must be all the, it must be all the tail gunner and the top turret gunner and the ball gunner must be doing the bulk of the work there.
Yeah, I remember I watched a video in it was in World War. It was translated into English, but it was a German training video that they saved from that era, the Luftwaffe, and they had like it said B-17 something in German fortress, so they had like half the name there.
Yeah.
And it showed like the firing arcs of all the guns. And basically the guy was and these were the fighter pilots that were attacking the B-17s, and they basically said like it's the safest thing is to strafe them from below and the side because they do have but the waist gunners had the lowest arc of fire.
Okay.
Because the wing kind of interfered with their front arc. So if you were going to strafe them, come in from the front, from the side, and like strafe up because the waist gunners can't get at you, but don't come from the top or the bottom or the rear because they'll just wipe you out. But they had all the firing arcs mapped out because they captured these things and figured out how far the guns turn.
Yeah.
We were always changing the guns around and stuff. But yeah, that was.
Oh yeah, like you said, like, well, yeah, some of the trivia for this is like how like what were these like B-17Gs and they had to like revert them back to B-17Fs or something because that's what they were at the time. So it's like, so yeah, I guess yeah, this is 43, so this is probably like the one of the furthest developed of the B-17s got during the war.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah.
Which I don't know what the changes are. I know one of the changes that they had like. But they said they had like a chin gun later on. They had like one pointing straight out on the, but from the at the bottom at the front. Of it.
They had like it was like a dual gun. It was like basically like a ball turret gun, but just mounted on the front, and it had like a 30-degree arc of fire.
We got Sean Astin. He plays Rascal, which again I don't know. I think he's like 18 in this role. He's like really young. I mean, this is like his was Sean Astin in White Squall? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I feel for some reason I feel like he was in that movie, but also not. No, I don't think he was.
No, because he would have been like that would have been his Rudy era.
Yeah. No, he wasn't in that. Oh yeah, I was like 96. I remember. I think Rudy was like 94 or something.
Yeah.
He would have been all of 24 by then or something. There's rumors of a mission to Germany, so that like kind of scares them because it's like I'm guessing they've just been bombing around France and stuff like that, which is I guess they feel safer to do then. But like when you're going to
Germany was the most well defended, especially if you're doing like Berlin or any of their industrial cities. They had you ranged up already because the Germans had radar guided flak and stuff. Like they had some. They were not. If you start hitting their big cities, I mean, they took out a lot of bombers, but they also suffered a massive amount of damage too.
Oh yeah. With what was the firebombing or Dresden? Yeah,
Dresden. Yeah,
we just incinerated a German city. So.
Well, the thing about Dresden, what was sad was it wasn't. Well, first of all, I've heard in modern times it was actually overstated. Like it was actually a lot more typical of a bombing than what there wasn't a special death in it. What was horrifying about it was it wasn't really a key target.
Oh.
And they used a lot of napalm on a medieval city that had never been bombed up at that point. So that's why it became like, oh, they just burned it to the ground. But compared to the fire bombings of like Tokyo, it was like, oh, this was fun.
That was quaint, yeah.
Yeah, and also I think, what was his name? Is that Kurt Vonnegut was a POW in Dresden when that happened?
That's where Slaughterhouse 5 comes because that's where they were hiding. That's where they were hiding from the bombing because he was a prisoner in Dresden when it got firebombed, and they were keeping them prisoner in a slaughterhouse, which was like all like concrete and stuff, and like saved them from the bombing.
Yeah, so he pretty vividly described having to go and clean up Dresden because, like I said, it was just a medieval city that had never been bombed at that point. and all of a sudden Bomber Command just decides to just like, oh, we're hitting it with napalm and everything. And
I know Slaughterhouse-Five kind of covers that in a weird, obscure way. Actually never read that book, but there's like a letter home from Kurt Vonnegut that like you have to read because it's like him writing about his experiences getting captured in World War II to his parents, and it's
yeah,
like, and it has humor in it, and it's like weird because like the Germans kept capturing and making do things, and he would just like walk away. And then, like, because it was near the end of the war, so they didn't have enough people to actually like keep everybody in line. It's
yeah, you just kind of walk off the line and they're not sending guys after you.
It's like, oh wow, I've never heard of this World War II. Because he was like a chaplain or something, so he wasn't like necessarily like front fighting line guys or whatever. He was just there to do the religious stuff.
There were guys that like left the Germans and got captured by the French. The French like resistance fighters, and then just like the regular French military that started reforming as we were moving across Europe, and they didn't know exactly who the French were. I mean, they knew who the French were, but they were like guys that got shot down in planes or just got separated from their units. These French guys would show up. Nobody spoke the same language, so
Yeah.
they're like, I guess I'm a POW. I don't. And the French would figure out, no, he's an American. He's on. It's like, oh, okay, well, come with us. And then they'd attach him to British forces, and it was like a weird. It's like, well, yeah, they're all the same, right? It's like, no, they're British. I'm an American. Why? I don't. Okay, cool. And the British like, yeah, we don't know what to do with you. Just hang out. Yeah, there was a lot of stories like that. Or they'd have them like, "Do you want to fight? Here's a Breen gun." You know, it's like, sure.
Do you like
It was a lot more
Czechoslovakian?
chaotic.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like, again, when you read about like, oh, the Ostfront, it's like whether it was the Nazis versus the Soviets, it's like, no, there was no set nice stories like that.
No.
It was just people murdering each other wholesale. It's like, oh my God. On both sides, it wasn't one side or the other. They were the Soviets and the Nazis were.
Well, the more bodies you kill, the better off your chances you were. So.
Well, and it was, it was. Again, it's like whole that thing. It's like sometimes you must fight evil with evil. It's like, oh, yeah, in that case, I see that. I prefer the Kurt Vonnegut wandering around the countryside myself. It makes me feel a little better.
They have like a big dance shindig for the bomber crew. There's like a full-on band and everything. Of course, this never happened. Rascal's like trying to be pathetic to get laid, where he's like, "Oh, this might be my last night on Earth," but he knows what he's doing. And we have Verge. He's like, his name's Virgil, and they call him Virgin, and he like unintentionally makes the British lady Faith hot for him. So, then we have a moment where Dearborn talks to Ben Browder for a moment. He's like, "Yeah, I used to make like my family's makes furniture, and like I used to make furniture," and he's like, "Okay, dude, I'm gonna go." Which I only pointed out Ben Browder because he's in one of my favorite shows of Farscape, and he seemed to be like, "Oh, this guy's a star," and then he just kind of disappeared.
Huh.
He's still around. They put him in like, did you ever watch Stargate SG-1?
A few times, yeah.
It it lasted like 15 seasons and inexplicably, and like when what's the MacGyver guy, I forget his real name, he left the show, and basically Ben Browder like filled in his role.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then like at that time it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, which he starred in Farscape on the Sci-Fi Channel, so that made sense. So yeah, he kind of does like TV here and there. He is in the MCU universe. He's like, you know those gold people in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies?
Yes.
He's like an admiral or something. He's kind of like the side. He's kind of like the helping hand to like the Queen Gold Lady or whatever. So that's kind of it's kind of the biggest thing he does right now. But I've always liked him, but I've kind of feel sad that they didn't use him in other things. But oh well. Go watch Farscape, I guess. I think it's streaming somewhere. I don't know.
Gotta be.
I don't know who owns that. Sci-Fi is such a weird, low rent place. I used to think like, oh man, the pinnacle of television, but like you look at it now, it's like, oh, I don't think they were ever good at anything.
Yeah.
Like
Sharknado.
I mean, I think like it's like you looked at like Battlestar Galactica, and that seemed like a mistake that they made that. And I feel like if you talk to like the business people, they'd be like, "Oh, that was such a waste of money," but like at least I got eyes on our product for our cheaper stuff or something like that. And then, they made the Expanse for like a season or what? When did they get rid of it? Was it after the first season or was it like the second season? And
I thought
then
it was after the second season.
Amazon bought it and took it along to 6 seasons at least. And we'll see what happens. I feel like they'll never do those last 3 seasons, but you never know.
I mean, yeah, they can wait.
Yeah, it'd make more sense if they did
You
to
could,
have the
like,
older
30
crew.
years and
Yeah.
then do it again. Gonna have a tough time with the one guy, but that's what they'll have makeup by then.
um.
Oh wait, no, he aged too. He didn't stop aging until like the next to last book.
Oh yeah.
He became the
Yeah, they had
gray.
all age. Yeah, because that was the thing is like you have like this 30-year gap, which makes it seem like that's nice for them. They had 30 years where nothing happened because they spent like 5 years on like the ragged edge of like adrenaline rush and emptiness.
Yeah.
And world changing events. So you just have to imagine that 30-year gap was like, oh, everything's cool, Um. Then we cut to like Dearborn's outside talking to the plane like it's a person. He has reservations about like his tour ending and or his luck running out. So I don't know which is which. So that was my guess there. Then we get a reveal that Verge is like hidden in the airplane with Faith. Verge gets laid presumably. Like he's bad at like having sex with this lady, but she's still on board. So, which they don't do that in movies usually. It's like, oh, he made a misstep. Now he's not getting laid. Well, here it's like she's very patient with him. So, and he found a monkey wrench. And he's like, oh man, I thought I lost that.
Yeah.
She's like, it was under my bum. He's like, cool. I love wrenches. Which they cut away, so presumably he still could have not gotten laid, but you're supposed to believe that he did because it's like the one secret he won't tell Rascal or whatever. It's like I got laid by the chick that you didn't, and you're still calling me virgin. What we call that? It's projecting
Yeah.
by Rascal. Then we come back to inside. The Memphis Belle are the enlisted crew are harassing a new crew that came out. Like they make it sound like they've only flown the plane like a few times and now they're getting put on a mission. I think this is the plane Mother and Country.
Okay.
Then we cut the Darrigan goes up to the mic. Oh yeah, did I mention that Darrigan's played by oh crap. Why am I forgetting his name? And why
John Lithgow?
Yeah, John Lithgow. Which is probably one of his most sanest roles around this time because he's great at playing a madman.
This was John Lithgow's refractory period.
I don't know. Like I think it was like Ricochet was around this time, which he played a madman, and then Cliffhanger was around this time where he played like an eccentric, madman, bank robber. And then every once in a while he'd do a fan. He'd do Harry and the Henderson as well. Just to even it out. And then he got Third Rock from the Sun for like 12 years. So that's a great.
That's where he made his money.
Yeah. And then he had
I didn't know he was an American for a long time.
That makes sense to me. He does have a weird voice. I mean, he doesn't even necessarily sound American in this.
No, he went to London for school. He went to Harvard.
Okay.
And then he went to London to study drama. And I always thought like, oh, John Lithgow is like a British guy. It's like, no, he's from New York. But he's just the way he acts, she's just trained like that.
Oh, is he like one of those like Shakespearean trained actors? So he just kind of has that.
I would assume so.
Okay.
I mean, well, he's also a guy that went to Harvard in the 60s. So it means he was like super smart too. So
I don't know. Nathan, did you ever watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Angel?
Yes.
Do you remember Spike? He was like the British kind of like punk rock vampire bad guy.
Vaguely, yeah. I know what you're
Uh,
talking about.
hey, so like, if you watch him do any acting role, he has a British accent. He's from Santa Monica, California. He was a trained Shakespearean actor, and that's just how he acted.
Oh, okay.
Which is hilarious and great. It's like, yeah, got to commit to your, some people have the Meisner method, and he's got the Shakespearean like theater actor method. So
Well, if you want to be the best actor you can be, act like a British guy because
yeah,
they're the best actors in the world.
and if you start that way, no one's ever going to tell you have a bad British
Yeah, that's all they know you as.
accent. Because even British people have bad British accents.
Yeah.
um, Derringer's like trying to rile up the crowd for the Memphis Belle, but he doesn't know that like cheering is bad luck or something. Like he starts doing hip hip hooray, which like the British people start doing that, but then like all the like crewmen are like, no, 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 don't do that. And then there's an awkward silence. So then Busby goes up and sings and play the piano. This is of course Harry Connick Jr. just doing his thing.
Yeah.
um, so that changes the mood of the crowd. They sang Danny Boy, which kind of like embarrasses Danny Boy, but which they I don't know, they like sing this and American Grace like 5 times in this movie. So I feel like the budget for the soundtrack of this movie was like nothing. It was just all or public domain songs and stuff like that, which I guess would be appropriate. The time sing the
Yeah.
songs of the time. So
Yeah, that's one thing they did not have in World War II was a lot of cool music.
yeah.
That's why Vietnam was like always looked cool. It's like they're just playing Jimi Hendrix and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah, I just
Imagine like the firebombing of Dresden set to, like Voodoo Child or something like that would have been real. They've done stuff like that.
yeah, I think in Glorious Bastards, didn't they have like a Nick Cave and the Bad Seed song in it?
Yes,
Just
they
randomly?
I remember that. Yeah.
But then they kill Hitler with like with a punch handgun, and it's like, yeah, why not?
Go wild.
um. Then we cut to outside. I think this is Lowenthal. This is like the drunk. He like screams about not wanting to die, and so he just keeps drinking. So he's like, well, yeah, I guess all the luck stuff here really plays into it. So I guess like the more missions you get through, the more like lucky charms you have to add to everything on your airplane. So,
Oh yeah, superstition becomes religion to very smart men when life and death hangs in the balance.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, these guys that would never, these guys like know mathematics and can navigate airplanes, but they're like, yeah, give me that, pendant. It'll prevent the flak from killing us.
We cut to the next day. The officers get woken up for like a mission breakfast and a mission briefing. Lowenthal is missing, which they cover for him. Said like, I went to the head. So then he just shows up drunk, and then Val has to babysit him. Yeah, what is? I think Lowenthal's the navigator. So yeah, that's the guy you really want drunk on your mission.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget a lot. Yeah, I forget a lot of these guys. Some of them blend together. There's like I think Verge is like the mechanic. I forget who the co-pilot is. Dearborn's the pilot.
Luke Sinclair.
Okay.
That's what you're naming right now is one of the biggest problems with this movie.
Yeah.
This isn't because we didn't watch it close enough. It's because you don't really get to know any of these people. It's just in the most general way, and everyone's kind of a caricature of the guys you'd think would be on a bomber plane in World War II.
I mean, that's why they do the front the way they do, or basically just read off their dossiers, hoping like it fills in the gaps. But
yeah,
I don't know who the waist gunners are. I don't remember their names. There's kind of the guy with the gruff voice and the weird teeth, and then there's like the dorky guy next to him. So that needs his patron saint of lost items thing.
One of them's an Irish guy from Cleveland named Gene McVeigh, and the other one's an Italian guy from Chicago named Jack Bocchi.
Okay, that's the rough voice guy. So
yeah, he's like a hood from Chicago, but he's actually likes the people around him because they're all just going to go through hell together. So
Yeah, I was trying to look up some of these people. Some I thought I recognized, and I realized I didn't. There's one guy like ended up at like I was like I don't know if I need to check out the show or not. It was like he was in a show that got canceled. I don't even know if it was good, but it was like I was looking at the trivia for it. It was like they made this show. It was a Chris Carter show called Harsh Realm about like VR scenarios with like soldiers and like they have to like basically have Apocalypse Now in VR for some reason. And one of the guys in this was in that.
Huh. That's weird. I've never heard of that.
I think it only had 6 episodes, so obviously it didn't do well. So
Right.
oh, there's a lot of like good tries in the 90s. I mean, I think yeah, Chris Carter basically had Millennium, which that kind of just floated on X-Files. Like,
yeah, I do remember Millennium.
Tales.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Millennium only made it 3 seasons, but like I think it seemed to have been highly regarded over the years, but like otherwise I don't think he ever had a show really take off. Cuz I think he made like 7 shows.
Huh.
I don't know. Yeah, let's take a quick Chris Carter detour. I remember that one that Amazon made that like looked amazing. Like I knew if they put it to full order, it would have been stupid. But I was like,
Is that the one where everyone's birthday was the same day? And
yeah,
they all met each other, and then there was a demon.
yeah.
Okay.
The After, yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that being kind of cool.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh, this will be amazing. I doubt it'll work, but okay. So yeah, we got the X-Files, of course, the Lone Gunman, which only made it 1 season, Harsh Realm 1 season, Millennium, and that appears to be it.
Huh.
And then I think he was a writer on some other TV shows, but those are the ones he created. So
Then we had the last season of the X-Files.
yeah, I never watched those last 2 seasons, or did they have 3 seasons? How many of those last seasons? How many of those 2010s X-Files seasons were there?
I think there was just 2 of them,
Okay.
as I remember. I know that like progressively.
Oh, I watched that first episode, and I'm like, I thought it was like they're being funny, and then I realized they weren't. I was like, oh, I'm not watching this. This is awful.
Yeah, both like apologize for it.
I hear like either it was either like the penultimate episode of the first season or the second season was actually like a great X-Files episode, but the problem was their season finales were awful, but they had great penultimate episodes. Anyways. Yeah, I mean, X-Files is one of those. That was a show that probably never should have been a hit, so I was glad it was. That felt like that. That felt like that floated on the weirdness of Twin Peaks, but like had way more success.
Yeah, it was kind of that, and it was quirky at the same time,
Yeah.
without being. I mean, it got serious, but then it was also like weird and fun at the same time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think it definitely was like one of those times of. It just definitely had its what I would consider, like I was a young man when that came out, and I was into a bunch of weird shit. Like I've talked about before on the podcast. I was hanging out with magicians. I was doing shortwave radio. I was in guns. That was the 90s. It was like there's weird people doing weird shit everywhere, and it was like that was definitely a show of its time.
Yeah.
Dude, nowadays, if you were doing the stuff I was doing back then, they think you were some kind of domestic terrorist or a weirdo or troublemaker. But, back then it was like, that's just the 90s, man.
We get a mission briefing from Colonel Harriman. The target is Bremen in Germany. So that's where everybody kind of like sighs, like, oh, there's going to be a bunch of us that are going to die. So.
Yeah.
They go over the aerial photography of the place. They say 360 bombers are going to go bomb the factory.
Sounds about right.
We only see what, I don't know, 15.
Well, I mean, at the time they made this movie, there were only
8 that were working and 5 were on this that were on this movie, and one of them crashed on the way to the movie or something like that.
Well, because like a lot of these planes, they had to repaint them.
Yeah.
And like, because you had like the hero plane, the Memphis Belle, like that was definitely its own plane, but a lot of them had like different numbers on either side, so you
Yeah.
could shoot them with as one plane going this way, another going that way, and then like people, oh, I did read some weird like because this movie got some pretty scathing reviews, and it's like, oh come on, guys, it wasn't that bad, you know. But then people were picking it apart, like, well, you can tell the sticker on the Memphis Belle was just like a magnetic decal, and it's like, well, yeah, you can, because do you think they were going to just let them paint on the side of one of these rare, viable aircraft? Because this movie was basically practical effects with
Yeah.
some, you know, not a lot of CG. It was a lot of models, a lot of
Yeah.
really cool. If you like RC models, this movie, watch the making of. It's like they had some amazing RC planes that were like, what were they called? 1/10 scale or something. They're big.
Yeah.
They weren't as big as the actual planes, but they were pretty big. But I think you can only go up so big before you compromise. Like whatever scale the aircraft they just made them for, it was like it had to look realistic to what it looked like.
Yeah.
But with RC planes, you have to, the bigger the planes get, the more ridiculously oversized the engines get.
Yeah.
Because you can't design an actual functioning rotary engine that's this big unless you're a mechanical genius or you have $250,000 spend for someone to do that. So I know the scales they made these planes in were like they were custom made, but the engines had to look like the right size and stuff. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that was but yeah, that's one thing to remember about this movie is like, yeah, some of the special effects aren't awesome, but you got to remember all practical.
Yeah, no, I think the special effects are serviceable. I mean, sometimes it's like what's going on there, but it still looks good. It's like, I mean, some of the stuff they just use like stock footage of World War II. It's like, yeah. Whatever.
Well, they had to. I mean, they only spent $27 million on this movie.
Yeah,
they didn't make it back.
No, I mean maybe on cable. You never know.
Yeah, it could be.
So yeah, they're gonna bomb a factory in the middle of civilian buildings. So they make a point of that, where it's basically if you miss anywhere around this factory, you're gonna hit a church, a hospital, like a school. Yeah.
Nothing I've ever read about World War II did people actually care about that.
Yeah.
In the briefings, nobody ever pointed that. They were just like, the only thing they cared about is like, really, we need to bomb the ball bearing factory that makes the Messerschmitts. See this is a church, this is where people live, don't waste bombs on those. That was how it was put. It wasn't put like you could kill people. Oh, they didn't care.
You're gonna hit the ball bearing factory and then they'll turn it into a giant shotgun that will then hit the school, so don't worry about it, we're gonna get all the people.
No, the thing they were concerned the most about is don't waste our damn bombs or planes bombing the farm. Hit the ball bearing factory.
But here they gotta make it the propaganda that's like, no, we're the good people of war. We're not gonna bomb civilians.
There's no good people bombing civilians. I mean, there are brave people. There's nothing good in war planning that involves bombing civilian cities. But also, if you're going to put the ball bearing plant in the middle of a civilian city and then declare war on the world, well, what do you think they're going to do? There was no such thing as a precision guided munition in World War II. There's really no such thing as one now, even though they say they have them. They still, the hit or miss rate's pretty high still.
But yeah, I mean, sending 360 bombers to bomb one plant, that's like the amazing scale of World War II. That's why things of World War II look great, because it's just the scale of it is just incredibly insane. Which, like, I always think, like, I know, like, a movie that would be cool but would make no sense whatsoever, which is use the scale and deployment of World War II, but with modern weapons. It's like, where it's like, 800 jet fighters, like, right next to each other, like, crashing into, Russian fighters all in one line. It's like, there's no reason to ever do that. It'd be stupid, but it'd look amazing.
Yeah, I mean, World War II was also a war of, like, what I call the war of the normal man, where it's like, because nowadays in war, like, you can kind of identify with some of the people or imagine in those scenarios, but a lot of it's like movement, hiding, placing, a lot of thinking is going on. World War II was just a continuous onslaught.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could imagine yourself hanging out the side of an aircraft. Boom, 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 just we don't even have provisions for that anymore. Now it's like, it's a bunch of computer brains. It's like missiles flying everywhere and people throwing flares out. And It's like, but World War II was like, yeah, your job is to shoot this gun off the top of this tank. Like that's your job. You don't need to go to technical school to do that. And you're going to meet a bunch of guys and hang out. And yeah, it's like, yeah, modern warfare is like very removed from like, oh, I could imagine this. It's like, no, I can't imagine modern war. And the weirder stuff happens, the further away you get from it. Because pretty soon it's just going to be Terminator endoskeletons running around. It's like, oh, okay, this is World War II is just like pulling guys out of buildings and like, hey, you're in a soldier now. Go fight.
So that'd be the end of Act 1. We got Act 2. The enlisted get told that they're going to Germany, and so they just joke about all the different ways they're going to die.
Yeah. It's weird gallows humor.
Then the whole Memphis Belle crew overload a Willie Jeep and head out over as they sing Amazing Grace, which is just like stupid, but whatever. Yeah. Got to get into the propaganda.
It's one of those things. It's like, I understand what you're doing, but I don't like the way you're doing it. Fast forward.
Actually, I think it's more of like, I know what you're doing and I don't like it. Whereas, like, you know, some people won't bat an eye. They'll probably bring a tear. It's like, oh, they know they're going to their death and they just want to celebrate America.
Well, when I hear people, here's the thing. This is where my mind goes because I'm kind of cynical. Amazing Grace is about God shedding his light, grace, and upon you, and like relieving your suffering and giving you grace in the face of the adverse situation. That's fine. That is actually an adverse situation. To go bomb the shit out of people, God is like, you want to bring God to that activity? It's don't bring Jesus to a whorehouse. I mean, but that's cynical me.
Yeah. We got oh yeah, did they even say what the factory builds, or is it just a factory?
I mean, everything's a ball bearing factory. For me, we're doing.
We get a montage of the planes being loaded up, which is pretty cool. I mean, actually, like the thing I like most about the movie is just like the operation of the B-17.
Oh, they got the actual planes there, and it's like, how do you ferry bombs into these things? You're loading the bullets in. Click, 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 click. Yeah, it's cool.
Which, yeah, was probably why I liked it so much as a kid. It's like, how do these things work? And you just get to see people work on it. So it's just a neat thing. The Memphis Belle crew hop on the plane to do their pre-check, which is like, they have the side door, which they kind of, the guys just hop in, but then they have this weird, like, undercarriage door that goes in the cockpit where they have to, like, grab on the handles and, like, invert themselves upside down to jump in. I was like, man, all I can just imagine is, like, just missing a grab or slipping your hand and falling right on your head.
And imagine too, it's like, it's on fire, we got to bail out. It's like, oh, you got to do that big dumb thing to get out.
Well, I guess that way it makes more sense. If you're in the air, you just go down the chute out the airplane. But but there seems to be so many other holes in the airplane you can just jump from. But just hope you don't hit a engine.
Just the whole concept of jumping out of an exploding aircraft. Wow. Okay.
So a guy comes by and says that like the mission's been delayed because there's cloud cover over the area. We cut to Busby sees a farmer with a broken down tractor and he helps him out. It's like, I got one of those at home. Sinclair is he's the co-pilot. He wants to man the tail gun to get to kill a Nazi, just so he can say he killed a Nazi back at home. So he's talking with him as he's riding with a British farmer on his tractor. Yeah, I forget. There's something early on when they're at the celebration. They're all dancing with all these British ladies and like this, and then like one of them's bragging about a steak, and she's like, I haven't had a piece of meat for like 2 years. It's like, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Interestingly enough, there's videos you can watch on YouTube, instructional videos from the United States Army Air Corps about how to deal with people in Britain. What to do when you go to a pub or get invited out to drinks or whatever, and they implore you, they say, as an American serviceman, in service in the British theater, understand that you're getting paid 5 to 6 times as much as your counterparts are. So don't go to a bar and buy everyone in the bar a drink because they won't appreciate it. They'll resent you because they'll figure out how much you're making. Don't talk about your wages. Don't. They had all this advice about how to be an American in Britain during World War II. And basically, it was like, don't spend or talk about too much about money. Because for some reason, like the dollar was worth 10 times what the pound was at the time, and there was stuff going on, and also they were massively in debt to us, so our money like bought a lot more. But they were saying, yeah, like don't be too generous over there because they'll resent you. I don't know if that was good advice or not, but those were the official government videos made. And the other ones was how to understand what they're saying, which those are hilarious. We all speak English, but we don't speak it quite the same. Here's some examples, and they'd have British people come on and say stuff like they had a mouthful of marbles. It's like, this is what he really meant. He's not insulting you. Don't react with aggression. It's like, these are some strange. Go to YouTube and watch all the World War II training videos. They're amazing.
Well, I always remember, like, I thought, like, when the war on terror was going on, it's like, oh, we're gonna have to like ration and do things. Because you see like the propaganda of World War II, where it's like, if you ride alone, you're riding with Hitler, and like it's like, oh, we need to get behind this and really do this. And it's like, so what do the American people need to do? And it was just like nothing.
Shop. I think George W. Bush actually said that. Go out and shop, spend money, keep our economy going. So buying yourself like a 90-inch TV was like buying a war bond. Like, oh, this whole thing can't be a scam, right? No, patriotic. Okay, all
right. Yeah, because like all that rationing and stuff, that's just communism coming to life.
Yeah, buy a soldier dinner, but be sure to vote for the people that are going to completely degrade his benefits when he comes back from the crucible of hell known as war. But
I mean, that's like the almost cynical thing that everybody got behind, because like I guess I don't know. I don't know. When I hear people talk about like the calling soldier the hippies calling soldiers baby killers as the cat came back from Vietnam and made them sad and resentful, and you have all these like revenge books written by like Vietnam veterans that are like really scoping on that, but then you hear stuff about like, no, nobody really cared about that at the time. It's just like a point of interest in historical movies and stuff like that. But still, it seems,
I understand most people were largely indifferent to it and didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we hope that's over soon. For you guys, and it sucks that we have to pay for it. We don't understand it.
But there did seem to be a turn where it seemed like everybody got behind the servicemen of the war. It's like, oh yeah, we don't agree with the war, but like, you're doing your, you volunteered, like nobody was drafted, so it's like, we'll buy you dinner.
Yeah, that's the one thing people forget, like, like Vietnam is like, no, that wasn't a choice. Like, they just showed up and said, hey, you're going to war. If they tried that now today, it would be, people would go buck wild. It would be crazy. You'd see these anti-war protests just spring up in every mid-sized city in America.
There's some time later, the crew's hanging out, like they're agitating each other as they wait for the mission. Which is just them going over the nerves, because like, come on, let's just get over it. Are we gonna be dead or not? They see Danny Boy writing, so they make him read his poetry, which I guess actually isn't his poetry. Which is about him dying in the sky. So they're like, well, we regret this.
Yeah, we wanted to hear, like, there once was a man from France. That's the kind. We want to hear dirty limericks.
But yeah, so he's like the super Irish guy. So, or is the other guy the super Irish guy?
There was a couple of guys that were
this is Eric Stoltz. He's like red haired. So
yeah.
It's time to roll out. The Memphis Belle starts up. All the bombers start up, and like the propeller roar like fills the area. So it's a real cool sound. So
I think it's cool they start those with a shotgun shell.
Okay.
That's how they kick them around. I don't think it has buckshot in it. I think it's just powder.
Okay.
But it just have you ever seen how a rotary engine works?
Somewhat. I don't know.
Yeah, you should look it up sometime. A video of like just an internal diagram of how a rotary engine works on it. A piston-driven rotary engine on an aircraft of that era works. It's insane. You're like, wow, that actually works. Because the camshaft or the crankshaft is in the middle.
Yeah.
That's what's driving the propeller. And on the outside, there's all these pistons. And as the crank spins around, all these pistons just articulate back and forth, back and forth. But then when it gets up to speed, it's like a blur of mechanical. Like, that's insane. And those things, no wonder those things like took a shot or something and the engine burst into flames because there's all kinds of metal and gas moving in all different directions.
We get shot of all the planes as they take off. They basically all have scantily clad women drawn on them.
Yeah.
I don't know. You remember any of the names? I know Mother and Country. I don't think I actually showed that one. And there's, there's like Nine Ball or something like that, or there's Windy City is one of them. But yeah, I don't know if you remember any of the other names of the bombers.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I wanted to. We all made Liberators for the club.
Yeah.
I wanted to do nose art from someone was going to help me. It was from Bruegel's. I don't know if you know Bruegel.
No.
Okay, you've heard of Hieronymus Bosch, those paintings. Okay, there was another Danish artist called
which of course I only know of that because of the Amazon show where the guy's name Hieronymus Bosch.
Oh, yeah, well,
I know was a painter, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And it was all pictures of people being tortured in hell.
Yeah.
Well, Bruegel did a lot of that too.
Okay.
And he did one called The Triumph of Death. There's a still from it of a picture of a skeleton lopping a man's head off. And it's like, I wanted to make that the nose art for my B-24 for the club, but a lot of guys were like, no, Nathan, they wouldn't ever do that. Well, why wouldn't they do that? It's like, they wouldn't think that was funny. It's only young weirdos like you that would think that was funny. It's like, well, thank you for calling me young. I feel better about that. So yeah, that was going to be my nose art was going to be the still from the Bruegel painting, the skeleton chopping a man's head off who was kneeling like he was praying. Going to call it what I was going to call it. It was going to be in French. It was going to say "La Mort de Triomphe," and yeah, no one in the club thought that was. It's like, yeah, don't do that stupid shit that you do. It's like, okay, sorry. I thought it was fun.
The planes get directed for takeoff. They all get lined up and they take off. We get shots of all the planes. Oh yeah, I said that. Now they're in the sky. It's cloudy. They have a near miss with another bomber. I don't know if this was this like just was this real planes in there, or was this just good model stuff?
This was probably good models. I doubt they would do that with the real planes because that would be dangerous as hell.
Well, I don't know how they did the clouds then, unless that was just cotton balls or something.
I'm not sure. It looked like it was pretty much it looked like a one-shot scene to me. Like, of course, the interior was on a set, but the actual planes, because like they were rising up and then one was flying straight above them, right? So those were probably models.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how much stuff did they do in there. Do you think all the stuff in the air is just sets and models, or do they?
They did some stuff with the real planes.
Okay.
They did a lot of actually. You mentioned like Grandpa Flew the Mitchells. They did a lot of. There was 2 Mitchells that they used for filming that they just painted that drab color, and they just did certain shots so you couldn't see the wing engine configuration. But yeah, they used a couple of those. But those are for the big, expansive scenes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the close-in stuff was just like remote control stuff and things like that.
I mean, all the like the takeoff and landing stuff, that's all just the real planes, but that makes sense.
Most of the planes in the background in this on the ground, interestingly, were wood mock-ups.
Okay, good. That sounds exactly like World War II.
Yeah, which is actually
mock-ups all
we did. So the Germans didn't know where we were going to land on D-Day. We made the fake wooden planes and tanks, and they thought we were coming through Calais.
Even Busby has a fake plane he's whittling the whole time, which I don't know if that has any deeper meaning or not. Other than like the plane gets broke at the end, it's supposed to like, represent the plane getting broke or something. So. Yeah,
that's kind of the same. That follows the same path of guys that build wooden ships on wooden ships. That era, it's kind of the same thing. Like this is a representation.
Yeah.
This is me controlling my world with this wooden model of a world I can't control. That's always the same meaning. Unless I'm just full of shit, which is also possible.
We got Val. He's the bombardier. He goes and pulls the pins and all the bombs to arm them because I don't know if that's how you do that, but that's kind of neat. It's like it just seems like
I would assume for that era's technology, yes, that's how you did that.
it's just like it's just a giant hand grenade.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
essentially.
more complicated, but yeah, it's the
I
pin
prefer
thing.
the Dark Star thing where you negotiate with the bomb.
Yeah.
Bomb, you're not going to blow up now. Bomb, you don't need to blow up now. I want to blow up. It's my mission to blow up. No, bomb, listen to me. I prefer that. But no, this you just pull the pin on a 500-pound bomb.
Rascal gets in the ball turret. He's like the smallest person, so that makes sense. Which I don't know. He's probably like average height for the people of actual World War II. I don't think any modern person could fit any of this garbage.
No.
um,
And I didn't call it up because I forgot we've done other World War II bomber movies, but yeah, there's a poem called "The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner." Yeah, it's the best worst contraption ever invented because it's articulated. It's dependent on the best technology you have of that era, and if you get stuck in it, you're done.
The navigator navigates. We got a montage of time passing. They say they're reading like 30 below zero, and it's just like there's just like open windows and stuff, and they're talking about like don't put your hands on the gun, like don't like drool and stuff like that, and it never becomes a problem except for like I think the tail gunner has some condensation builds up in his window, but like that sounds like there would be way more problems going on with just like some open when you got open slits in your airplane. But
Well, that's why those guys had wool. You ever seen those jackets they wore?
the bomber jackets, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, they even had crazier stuff that they clipped on in the air. I mean, they could just pull up like a wool hood,
Yeah.
which you would never wear anywhere except like Alaska.
Yeah.
But they had that stuff back then. They also used to pour like they just had the what did they have for the 50 cals? I think they had something that was like it was like a tin of oil that was warmed like with electrically heated.
Yeah.
And they could just pour it in the breech and they just action it back and forth. And
You
there
know
was
what?
all kinds of crazy little stuff they came up with to keep things working.
What are the guns? Are these like Ma Deuces or what are these on they have here?
I'm assuming they're 50 calibers.
Okay.
Because the most common machine guns they had at that era were 30 and 50 calibers.
Yeah.
I don't think 30s would hit hard enough
Yeah.
to really be worth using for that. But I could be wrong.
I mean, they look big. I just don't know.
I'm assuming they're 50s. 50s were the universal, all-purpose, destroy everything gun.
But I don't know if these were the Ma Deuces or not because I know they were like those were made in World War II and are still used today because they're just so simple and work. It's like why replace it?
Yeah, it's just a square box. That, I mean, I've seen one in action, gun thing.
Yeah.
I went to. It's like, oh, that's impressive. It's also like $6 a shot nowadays, so you're not going to be. Well, you just spent $200. Like, oh no.
Let's see here. Where are we? They pick up some radio broadcast and they kind of put it on the plane for a moment. It's like some, I don't know, it's some like music, which I guess they're all fascinated by. It's like, oh, this is a new music over the radio. It's a hot new thing, which I guess would be at the time. So
Is that kraut music?
yeah, I don't know what it is. Was that a German lady singing or is that like French? Well, I guess they're over Germany at this point, but
Yeah. It's German. I was assuming.
there's a gun test, so they make sure all the guns work. So just some fire off some rounds, do some desk pops. Some fighter escorts fly in, which I think they're like British escorts, but they never last that long.
No.
Danny Boy gets a call from Mother and Country, like those are the new guys, and he tells them to stay off comms. And then he tells one guy like, "Hey, pose for a picture," because that's like one of Danny Boy's gimmicks is like he's taking pictures of everything, which just becomes a plot point for him to get injured and nothing else.
Yeah, it doesn't pay off. You're thinking in the end, it's like, well, this is the greatest like memoir of.
Yeah, his pictures end up in Life magazine, but nah, nothing.
No.
the guys start talking about like what they'll do after the war, which there's some like I guess like Dearborn has some like hey, I want you guys to work for me at my furniture store, and he's like completely serious, and everyone's like, nah, dude, we don't want to still work for you after the war.
It's kind of your bland personality and your like, pre-autistic autism that's really turning us off. And also your kind of drive to be perfect. It's like I wouldn't want to be joining furniture together,
I don't know, but he's not like I mean, yeah, he strives for perfection and stuff like that, but he's not like beating people or making them feel lesser than. He's just like, come on, guys. If you do this, we'll all survive. And they're like, you're right. um, yeah, so we have some German fighters intercept the bomber group. The escorts engage, and the bombers retaliate with their guns. We get one German plane gets knocked out, which I think the tail gunner hits it. We got one bomber that goes down, but they're just kind of like shot, and they like I'm not sure if they're crashing or if they're just pulling off, but they just kind of like disappear, but they don't like blow up or anything. Windy City gets hit, and it blows up in front of the Memphis Belle, and this is the point where you see like down in the nose, we see like blood on the window, which freaks out Lowenthal because he's just like, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, which would immediately like reinforce this whole death thing. Like, oh yeah, this is a sign.
Which I like that Lowenthal just has to plot out some. He plots out the navigation and then just gets on a gun. I think the bomber also has a gun, but he's just like he has to, when it's time for bombing, he just sits on the eyesight and waits for the target to come into view.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, nobody got out of the Windy City. They're trying to remember one of the crew from the Windy City, and everyone's like, "Yeah, I can see his face," but then like they can't remember.
That is kind of a poignant moment in this movie. It's like you can imagine that being real.
Yeah.
It's like these guys are dead. It's horrible. Who were they? I didn't bother to find out. It's like, yeah, that would mess with your head. Like, this guy's died in front of me. I can't even tell you what they look like.
I mean, you have that also in a bunch of the war movies where, like, whenever a new guy shows up, it's like, yeah, don't get too close. They're probably going to be dead by the end of the day. So
yeah, it's always like, oh god, and then it happens. It's like, damn, he was
right. But yeah, when they're trying to remember this guy, Rascal has like a joke from the guy that he tells about like an amputation joke where like a guy gets caught and like they have to like amputate his leg, and they basically keep sending parts back to like the base, and they're like, we think you're trying to escape one which is funny. So.
One limb at a time.
That the escorts head back to base. The waist gunners have a fight over like the metal, and then like the Italian guy like throws the metal out of their airplane to like the horror of the Irish guy.
Now we're cursed.
Then we cut to Colonel Harriman gets called in to handle like Derringer. He's like setting up an after party for the Memphis Belle crew, and Harriman takes Derringer aside to yell at him for like not taking the whole Arrow Wing seriously, because like all Derringer wants is the Memphis Belle to come back. He doesn't care if anybody else dies.
Yeah.
And then he kind of like bluffs Harriman, where it's like, oh come on, you're just trying to meet quotas. You don't care about these people. And then Harriman makes Derringer read all the mail that are like responses to a bunch of death notices that he's sent out personally.
Yeah, it would be bad enough if he was just reading the death notices that he had to send out.
Yeah.
But this is from the parents. Is like, well, I'm glad he died doing his duty, and I don't know what happened. And Harriman was like, yeah, this guy basically got sprayed all over a cockpit or something.
Yeah, he got his head shot off in the air like 30 seconons into a mission. He didn't do anything, and I had to lie to his parents to say he was a good soldier.
Yeah, and it's like, God, that's dark. That's terrible.
Yeah, and then they'd be like, well, thanks for writing. He just has a bucket full of it. So.
Yeah, I was glad to hear from you. Telling people their children are dead.
Yeah, we just get here. Yeah, we get a montage of like all the different people writing back in their voices and stuff like that. So, yeah, which this movie's pretty swift, so it cuts a lot of time to get to plane.
Yeah, this is almost a 90-minute movie. I think it's like 102 minutes. It's like we're pretty close.
Yeah. We come back to Memphis Belle. They're engaged by German fighters again. They see a guy get shot out of the bomber with no chute. Oh, this is C Cup. It's weird. It looks like the guy falls out of the engine and not out of the nose of the plane. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it is. It's a strange, almost looks like a stop motion effect.
Yeah. So yeah, C Cup drops out of the formation, so they don't necessarily go down, but they lost the guy, and they got a big hole in the front of the plane. So Memphis Belle is taking the lead. Here they say they're 3 minutes and 20 seconds from the bomb run, so this is like the half an hour, 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So,
yeah.
Rascal's ball turret.
Yeah, they're doing football time now. There's going to be a lot of timeouts.
Rascal's ball turret malfunctions, but it comes back online just in the moment for him to shoot down a German plane. The Italian waist gunner guy thinks he got hit, but then he ends up being fine. It's just a graze, but it's like a graze by a 50 cal. So it's
no, it was German,
or whatever the Germans are shooting.
They're using like Bofors flak cannons out of the front of those and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I think they were using the same flak cannons. It was like we had a lot of the same calibers that the Germans did.
Okay.
Because I know all our artillery was the same caliber. It's just our artillery pieces had like 5 moving parts and theirs had 32. And ours were more accurate because they were less complex and easier to service. But I think, yeah, it was something weird like that. It's like we could shoot the same shells they shot, but it was like we didn't understand how to operate their artillery unless we studied it. It was like, that's way too complicated.
So yeah, the Irish guy helps the Italian guy, and then so the Italian guy reveals that he hid the medal. He didn't actually throw it out of the airplane, so he gives it back to the other guy. I also like what the Irish guy was freaking out that he lost his medal, so somebody gives him his lucky rubber band, which is probably just, I don't know if it's an actual lucky rubber band or if it's just like he'll just believe if I say this is a lucky rubber band.
He just needs to hold on to this talisman.
Yeah. And then flak starts hitting all around the bomber group, which you hear they get called. They put on actual flak jackets, which just look like those like umpire things they put on.
Yeah, they didn't have Kevlar back then.
Dearborn turns on the autopilot so Val can focus on the bomb run. So basically, like the pilots aren't flying the plane anymore; it's just going straight, so that he can look through the.
The Norden bomb site's flying the plane now.
Okay.
That's what's so scary about it, is because like this is just a guy doing this. He's not evading or anything.
No.
He's like vectored in on what he's going to hit, and he doesn't, like, if planes are coming in or whatever, it's like he's down in the bottom of the plane dropping bombs.
Now, did that thing work, or is there something else that was like supposed to be magic World War II stuff and it never actually worked?
We thought it was like a huge secret.
Yeah.
And we treated it like like I said, it was, the A-bomb is the second most expensive thing in World War II. The first thing was the Norden bomb site. And it did work, but it was like insanely accurate during fair weather, and a plane that could fly in a straight line that wasn't being shelled from the ground. It was like, wow, this thing really works. It's like, but not in real world conditions. I mean, it did, but it was like a lot of planes got shot down because we must fly in a straight line in a predictable path, so I can, because this thing's going to automatically like tell me the parabola of like, if I drop here, it hits there. It's like, it's going to do all that for me, but it's also assuming it's a clear sunny day and I'm not being shot out of the sky. So that was the problem with it. And we used to blow them up. Like when the planes were going down, it's like, destroy the bomb site. And it's like the Germans already had something like that. But the Germans also never really had heavy bombardment either.
Yeah.
They had like medium bombers. They didn't have the Lancasters or the stuff we did. So, but yeah, we thought it was like a secret. Like we weren't even going to give when the British bought our planes, we were like, we should strip the Norden bomb site out of it. And everyone's like, come on, guys. They're our allies. And I think the Soviet bombers we gave them, we did strip that bomb sight out, though.
Okay.
I don't know if we trusted them with that or not. But by then it was kind of a wash. It's like everyone knows what it is. We thought it was a big secret because we knew nobody had anything like that.
Yeah.
So, and again, it was good, but it wasn't. It didn't win the war. It was just like it was an effective tool under very specific circumstances. It was one of the few times in World War II where we were thinking more like the Germans.
Yeah.
It's like we have this wonder technology and we must guard it secretly. And it's like, it's effective, but it's not that effective. Okay. You're not winning the war with that. You're winning the war because you can send 300 school buses full of bombs after a plant. That's what winning the war. And also that America can make this unlimited supply of weapons because their cities aren't being bombed or anything, and they can just ship it over the sea in ships that they can put together in 30 days, the Liberty ships. So that's what won the war.
Yeah.
It wasn't like super technology. Only the war against Japan, though. That was super tech. that again, the only Wunderwaffen that won World War II was the atom bomb. And we spent 90 years lamenting that decision. It's like, oh no, that was horrible.
And to this day, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, it's still a problem.
There's an explosion in the cockpit. Like, it looks like there's blood everywhere. And then, like, everyone thinks the other person got hit. And they're like, no, you're hit. No, you're hit. And then one guy's like, it's tomato soup, which I guess is a fun scene here. So,
yeah.
Where it looks really bad, but it's like, oh no, a Quentin Tarantino movie happened. Like, who's dead? And it's like, oh, nobody.
And everyone wants the other person to be, no, you're hit. No, I'm fine.
It's the adrenaline. It hasn't hit. You're not feeling it yet. One of the wings gets hit by flak, and so they need to transfer fuel from one wing to the other wing, which is just cool, like mechanical stuff the plane can do. So.
Yep.
Although they probably had to adjust the propellers or whatever to account for like the weight going from one wing to the other, but they don't go that far. But
that's what all those switches in the cockpit do, in case everyone's wondering. I just have so many buttons. It's like, well, for stuff like that. I mean, nowadays a computer would do it, but back then it's like, oh yeah, we got to change the pitch on the blades, this many degrees to give it that much more thrust. And then when you talk to airline mechanics and pilots, you learn like, oh, there's actually blocks on the throttles where you can only go so high. It's like, oh, it's like something in the engine that stops it. No, it's the mechanical blocks on the throttle. Because if you go beyond that, that's called military power, and civilian aircraft aren't allowed to do that. Unless World War III breaks out, then all the mechanics are supposed to, and this is from civilian aircraft, they're supposed to unspool those locks on the big, wide body jets, because I guess they can actually go a little bit faster.
Huh.
I didn't know that, and it could be again complete horse shit that guys are telling me stuff.
But it sounds cool.
Yeah, it sounds cool. It's like I believe it.
Yeah, you don't know any better. So it's
just like you can use radar detectors to tell if like Russians are targeting your 747 because the X-band radar will, because those planes don't have radar on board, so they're not fighter craft. So if the Russians are targeting you, it's like, well, what good would that do? What are you going to do? Evade the missile with the 747? The only 747 that can do that is Air Force One.
We get a POV of the shots of like cloudy. Oh, this is like through the bomb site, so it's like it's cloudy, it's flak filled, and the target zone, so he can't see anything. So he's like, yeah, I can't see anything, and so Dearborn wants to make him come around again, so they make sure they hit the target. So this is like, the Americans are the good people, so they're not just gonna drop bombs and go away. It's like, well, I hope I hit it. So, of course, the co-pilot thinks this is suicide, but he's right. They're all right in the situation. Everybody's right. Lowenthal tries to fight with Val to just drop the bomb because I guess, if they don't have any bombs, then they just have to go back home. But, Dearborn makes the point that, like, if they don't bomb this target, they're just going to make somebody else who's going to get killed come out here. So we might as well. So they got to come around again to bomb the target, that would be incredibly deflating. It's like we already lost like 5 planes. We don't have any backup. We're running out of ammo. Like, what do you want us to do? I actually don't know if they're running out of ammo, so probably
No,
not.
they are.
Okay.
They can only hold so much.
um. So yeah, Dearborn's saying like, we either kill civilians or we make somebody else come back here to get killed to bomb the target. So that's what he tells them. So they reluctantly agree. So he turns the I like that the autopilot switch is like every time he reaches for it, he's like, "Don't do it, man! You're gonna kill us all." So then he's got to flip it. They go back around to start the bomb run again. Also, like that Lowenthal's the guy who's like also he has to like replot the pathway to get back here. So it's like he still has to do his job. He can't just interfere.
I can't do trig under normal circumstances. This guy's got to do like some calculations while bombs are going off next to his head.
And hungover.
Yeah, and hungover.
They get intercepted by German fighter pilots again. Which does the flak stop here, or they just go ahead and flak the fighters too?
No, I think the flak stops.
Okay,
it depends. Towards the end of the war, the pilots they didn't even have any ammo. They were just filling them with gas, and they were I think they were using the Focke-Wulfs more because they had more of them, and the pilots would just line up with the bombers and bail out and let the plane just smash into them. That's how that was like 45. It was towards the end of the war, but yeah, there was a guy who did that 17 times. He was like a Luftwaffe ace, taking out American fighters.
He's the equalizer. You lose every plane for every plane you take down.
Oh well, if you're trading a fighter for a bomber, it's like that's money in the bank.
Yeah,
but not when you're dealing with American bombers where they're coming off former car assembly lines almost as fast. It's like, well, you're not going to stop those numbers, but yeah.
Sinclair sneaks his way to the back to try to get on the tail gun to kill a Nazi. He does shoot down a Nazi airplane, but then it goes down and splits mother and country in half, it's very lazily like kind of, you don't see it crash, it doesn't blow up, it just kind of lazily drops out of the sky, and they hear their screams over the radio.
Yeah, the screamings over the radio is really weird.
Yeah.
It's like, that's nightmarish.
Yeah. Which they don't see anybody jump out of the airplane, so it's like, why don't you stop screaming and jump out of the airplane with your parachute? But yeah, they're new, so maybe.
I'm guessing it's implied that centrifugal force is holding them in place, because if you're inside some object just spinning around randomly, you're not. I mean, I think I would jump if it was possible.
I think one of these planes that go down, they say like I saw a couple of shoots, and that's like the best they get. So I'm not sure if it's this one or another one.
It's another. I think it's a different one.
Okay. They're back on the bomb run. It's still cloudy. Dearborn hesitates to turn them around again, so he's hovering his finger over the autopilot turn off. Which is just a big thing that flips all the switches.
Yeah.
Then the clouds just clear up just in time, so as Val finds the target, and so they bomb, because they're all like, whoever's on lead does everything. So like whoever's on lead, like their navigator has to navigate, and then everybody else just follows, and then whoever the lead is bombs, then everyone else just bombs where they bomb. So I'm guessing they don't have to look through sights. They just have to, like, once they see them bombing, they just drop the bombs, or I'm not sure how that works.
I'm assuming I know the books I've read about some of the strategies, especially bombing Europe, a lot of it was just based on redundancy and replacing. It's like, yeah, someone has to move into lead, and then they will initiate the bomb run, and then everyone bombs, because you're counting on 20 to 50% casualties on each bombing run.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's something like that, where it's like, once that guy starts, you start, and we're going to be close enough. Because we're just going to send 300 more planes tomorrow. So it's...
Then we should have shots of all the bombs dropping with their like whistling sounds. And here we get some even like World War II footage. And either some of it's in color or they colored it. I'm not sure. They did have some color footage from World War II, so that got around, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, then they bomb the target, presumably successfully, and so they turn around. Rascal's ball turret gets stuck again, and then the turret gets blown up by a fighter, but he doesn't get killed. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, the plexiglass saved him. Well, also there's a big gun frame in there that could have maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, or the fighter pilot like banged his plane off the ball turret and just ripped it off somehow. So
Could be.
I don't know that, but
Could have been one of those parachute attack guys.
yeah.
Well, you know what the formations were called, how the Germans did that, right?
What's that?
Well, they would know like where that's like just through intuition. It's like, well, they're going to bomb, the ball bearing factory.
Yeah.
So we're going to fly in figure eights with our fighters.
Okay.
And when those were called wolfberries. And what they would do is they would fly in two concentric opposing circles. And then that way they would be above the bombers. And so once the bombers would start lining up, because they noticed the bombers would quit maneuvering. They're lining up. So then we're just going to drop out of the sky on them from the top. And well, there's different angles they would attack them from. But yeah, but you didn't know if they were going to like strafe you or it was going to be one of the, again, as the closer you got to the end of the war, is just the parachute guys just going to line up on you.
Did the bombers have to get lower to bomb? Or could they bomb for 20,000? Because like, isn't that the thing about these heavy bombers is that like the fighter pilots can't really reach them because they don't go as high?
Oh no, they could. Well, it depends on what the cloud cover was.
Okay,
that's why cloud cover was so important. But if they, but they didn't have satellites to track it. They were just like predicting based on the old way of doing things. So yeah, sometimes the bombers would have to get lower, and these guys would come in on them. But no, the German pilots had like compressed air and stuff. They could compressed oxygen. They could breathe and stuff.
Yeah, but I just didn't. I wasn't sure if the fighter planes could get as high as the bomber planes because I thought that was I thought that was like one of their advantages that like they could get higher than the other planes.
They couldn't stay as high as consistently as the bombers, but they could get up to.
They could get up there and shoot at them. So
yeah.
But yeah, there was a moment like when they were saying like, yeah, everybody have your know where your chute is, and so they tell Rascal to buckle in, which he does is like, it hurts, and so like the buckle here keeps him held to the airplane as he's like hanging on about to fall, because Virgil comes up and opens it up and he's just hanging there, pull me up, so he pulls him up, keeps him from falling to the ground. So they close that off, so they don't have a ball gutter anymore. Here's where Danny they keep cutting back to his cameras, like everything's vibrating and shaking, and so like his camera, which is like a black box, is like vibrating off the table, and he's like saved it a couple times. This time the camera falls off. He goes down to pick it up, and then like he gets hit by some flak, and so he goes down. Well, it's weird. It's like flak and an explosion. It seems like some of his rounds on his gun like gets cooked off. Also, yeah, Val's Danny Boy's like the radio guy, and he's like the log guy, but he's also like a side door gunner or whatever. So everyone has a lot of jobs. So.
Yeah. Multitasking going on in World War II.
Yeah. Well, so I get you probably have to expect like some of these guys are going to get killed in the plane, so it's like you got to switch to roles if they can't do it anymore. So, yeah, I don't know, who do you think had the most important gun position? Like, what was getting the most kills or what?
Probably I'm not sure. Probably the top gunner or the rear gunner.
Yeah, they don't show the top gunner a whole lot. You just kind of see his feet. He doesn't really do much.
He has a complete, he has like he can't fire directly back. That's the tail gunner, but he has like a 300-degree arc of fire. I don't know how fast that thing traverses, but yeah, and I know the ball turret gunners on the belly were important because that was a weird angle to cover.
Yeah.
And the technology they came up to cover it with was nightmarish. It's like, you're just going to hang out of the bottom of this plane and this thing that's this gear-driven like ball turret that if it fails in any way, you're stuck. and like we learned from, wasn't there an Amazing Stories where the guy got stuck in the ball turret and the landing gear wouldn't come down? And that guy's always screwed if that happens. Because if he's stuck in there and there's no landing gear, it's like, well, he's just getting smeared. Because that ball turret has to face straight down for them to open up the door to get you out, as I understood it.
Oh, okay.
And the problem is there isn't a manual override they can really build into that if the gears have just been shot up and stripped out. Like, you can't move it manually. if you futz around with it too much, it might just drop out of the bottom of the plane. 'Cause I don't know if you ever seen one of those configurations outside of a plane. It's a pretty elaborate thing.
Oh, okay, no.
Like a ball turret's like a pretty massive structure there that supports it and everything.
Huh.
But that's a weird angle to cover. Because there's not too many. Because what are you going to do? Have a guy hang upside down? He's like, well, he's just going to pass out because all the blood's going to go to his head. So you have to build that kind of architecture around it. So, and remember, nothing was automated in World War II.
Yeah.
The only things that were automated was you could do like flight level with an altimeter and just lock your autopilot to that. But that's like you didn't have like automatic guns and stuff, and so everyone had to have multiple jobs.
Yeah, which I think Verge is like he's also some kind of gunner, but really he's like the mechanic of the airplane.
Yeah.
Because he's always running around fixing something.
He's like R2-D2.
Yeah.
Got to talk with the Falcon. Get us out of here.
They send Val up to fix Danny Boy. Which here is there's like we get the that he lied about being a doctor and he said he was only medical school for 2 weeks, which seemed like I don't know what you learned in that 2 weeks, but it's probably more than anybody else here did. So
yeah.
You're
probably like a qualified you'd be qualified as a surgeon back in the Middle Ages when they wore those masks. Like you would count back then. You'd be a plague doctor.
One of the engines has caught fire, so they have to dive to put it out. They're just like trying to blow out the candle here. What's the extra speed do here?
I think that's it.
Okay. They've reached max speed, and they say any faster, and the wings might rip off.
That was a problem with World War II planes, especially diving, because they could reach very high speeds, but the airframe wasn't designed to tolerate.
Yeah. They get it put out and they pull up, and so they kind of like breathe a little bit. But here we get like an outside shot, and we see like a bunch of the tail has been shot off, which these things had a huge tail on them.
Yep,
so.
They did. You know why they did? So they could fly flight level to drop bombs.
Oh, okay.
That's why they had those huge wing surfaces on the back, those huge control surfaces, because they had to be rock steady, but they were just nice big targets for German fighters to shoot at and flak gunners and stuff. So yeah.
We have cut to back to the inside. Val's talking about how like he can't take care of them, but he has a plan where like they can parachute him into Germany. Because they say that's like 2.5 hours to go back. And it's like he's going to be dead by then. So it's like if we parachute him into Germany, they might be able to take care of him, but he'll be a prisoner. And they're just like, yeah, but he's unconscious. How's he going to pull the chute and all this stuff? And everybody has like legitimate concerns that like, hey, throwing him out the airplane probably isn't the best idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to skin this cat. I don't think this is the best one.
But then Lowenthal like tries to convince Val that he can save Danny Boy as they have like the bomb bay door open as they're about to dump him out of the airplane. So we cut away. Have that being the end of Act 2. So Act 3, we have some of the bomber group is returning. There's people on the ground that are counting the planes. The Memphis Belle only has 2 engines left, so that's why they're like slow to get back. But yeah, we cut back the Infant's Bell here. There's where they tell them like, yeah, we have 2 engines left, and so they need to lighten up the load. So they throw all their guns and ammo out the side of the airplane, which seems kind of sad. It's like, oh man, can't get that back. It's like, it doesn't matter anymore. It's our last mission.
Think about the poor French farmers on the ground. Some maid of Melkin's gonna get hit with a 50 caliber.
But here we reveal that Danny's still on board, so the doc tried to work on him as best he could, which he has a flashback to his poem, and he like wakes up to say that like the poem's written by W.B. Yeats and like, he stole it. And then he passes out, which I don't know, that's weird. I don't know. It's like a deathbed confession. I don't know what the importance of this moment is, other than have him still be slightly
like
alive.
A Joe Rogan Carlos Mencia moment. Mencia will confess on his deathbed that he stole all those jokes.
So yeah, he passes out or dies. So Val does some chest compressions, and he steadies, and you can see him breathing, but he's not conscious yet. Then we cut to the Memphis Belle is coming in for a landing. It's the last plane. They put down their landing gear, but only one wheels goes down. So this is where Virgil has to go to the back to put the wheel down manually, which just takes forever. It's going to take 10 minutes to put this wheel down. So
remember what I was talking about? How it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you have to make it so a guy can do this and have the mechanical leverage to do it with, maybe what he's standing on being shot away. It's like all these things happen. So
And now they're also down to one engine. The ground crew starts to like walk away when they hear the Memphis Belle coming in, and so then everyone starts to like gather together. Virgil moves out of the way to let someone else do the crank, and then like he nearly falls out of the airplane because the bomb bay door just like opens up because he's standing on it. So
yep.
it's just like, oh yeah, that's a concern. So yeah, they just keep taking turns cranking the wheel. The rest of the crew is singing Danny Boy. Because like he's unconscious, gotta sing Danny Boy. They get the wheel down just in time as they hit the runway. Danny Boy wakes up as they hit the runway. The ground crew runs over to cheer them on. It's like, hey man, this plane's been shot up. Who knows if this plane will also blow up?
I'm not going to run towards this potential bomb. I'm going to clap distance, like, go win.
Derringer runs out to like try to get a press picture, even though like the crew's beat up, and it's like, hey, this seems like out of order. And then Dearborn,
Derringer just never gets it. He's just always got his foot firmly in his mouth.
Yeah.
Who wants to take a picture? It's like, who wants to go to hell?
And then Dearborn comes up looking angry for a moment, which he thinks like, oh, is he mad at Derringer? And then he pops his champagne bottle he's been saving for this moment, and he like cheers as like, okay, yeah, this is our last mission. We did it, guys. And so basically everyone survives the mission. So then we get an overhead shot. We get an overhead shot of the plane. It's all shot up and smoking, which again, like, yeah, let's gather around this plane. Yeah. They load Danny Boy.
Probably about 500 gallons of high-test petroleum. Let's hang out, see what happens.
They load Danny Boy in an ambulance. We get titles on screen. It says, the Memphis Belle flew her 25th and final mission on 17th May 1943. Over 250,000 aircraft battled for supremacy in the skies over Western Europe, and nearly 200,000 aircrew lost their lives. Now, is that inflated? Does that mean like all sides? Or is that just American? Sides. Okay.
No, only 500,000 Americans died in World War II, so that would be a very high number. If you look at the cost of airplanes and training air crews, that would be an insane. That is all people who fought in the air in World War II.
Okay, that's what
I saw that too when I was watching the movie. I was like, wait a minute, how much propaganda is this? Because you didn't make 200,000 of those planes.
The way they write it want you to think that 200,000 American airmen lost their lives. So yeah, this was filmed.
It was a very high number. I think it was like 43,000 or something, but
yeah,
it was a high number. But yeah, it was 8,000 of those were just learning to fly the aircraft in non-war theaters. So.
And it says the film is dedicated to all the brave young men, who whatever nationality, who flew and fought in history's greatest airborne confrontation. Which I don't know if 50 years later you need this pat behind the back, but whatever. So like I said, it's the propaganda. It's a World War II propaganda picture out of time. So
well, again, like I said, this was the kind of the prototype for like all the World War II films that came after this.
Yeah,
it's like we're gonna capture the high highs and and make it seem I don't know. It's a way to honor people and draw the theater goers in too.
Yeah, I mean, also like I think, this is probably like the last time they could shoot this kind of movie, because like I think now there's only one working B-17 bomber that can fly.
How many terrible? I can recall 3 terrible air show accidents that have happened in the last 15 years.
Yeah,
and 2 losses of aircraft of this era that were completely restored that I know guys personally that were involved in that, like, so there's a lot fewer of these around than there were in 1990.
Yeah,
because they're actually trying to fly these things around, which is like nobody flies 100-year-old aircraft anymore. So stop doing it. Put it in a museum. It's cool, but We have CGI now. We don't need to do this.
Yeah, there's that new show, Masters of the Air, which is done by the Band of Brothers and the Pacific people. It's on
Yeah.
Apple. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
No, I want to see it, but
Okay.
I'm again I've fiercely restricted myself to 2 streaming services now. 3 streaming services now. So because I just can't do the $700 a month
Yeah.
entertainment bill. I don't have that kind of money. Sorry, everyone. This podcast isn't generating that kind of money for me. So.
But yeah, that's the end of Memphis Belle. Like a perfectly fine movie, a perfectly fine mediocre movie.
They tried they started a genre here.
Yeah.
At least I believe that like they started a
No.
genre of World War II. This was kind of the template for every World War II movie that came after this.
I mean, this is like almost like it's like a neutered version of Das Boot. It's like here's how a submarine works, but like we just don't get into the crabs and stuff like that. Yeah. We just get into the like, what's it take to put a bomber in the air? How dangerous is it? It's like,
well, the thing with this, okay, if you want to parallel this to Das Boot, it's like the difference here is like these are the guys that won.
yeah.
Like in Das Boot, it's like, well, it sinks at the end because the Germans lost the war. It's like, were these guys individually evil? Did they run the death camps? No, but they were part of that system, so they lost, and the ship and it sinks at the end. Whereas America always wins. So yeah, there was a lot of that, but yeah, this was also like, again, it started a whole genre of World War II movies that came after, kind of reaching its apex with Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, what are the ones in between that you would think of? Or is you just have a kind of a general feeling that they exist in between?
No, there's when did Thin Red Line come out?
That was around 99, 2000.
Okay, so and because Saving Private
no, that's post 2001 because that's one of those let's make a World War II movie that's really about the war on terror.
yeah. I always remember liking it.
Oh yeah, it's a crazy movie of like just like the desperation of war, and it's super sad. There's nothing to be joyous about it, which is what's great about it. It's like, yep, this is war. There's no glory here. Which in this movie there is glory.
Let me think. I'm trying to. I like Downfall. Maybe fits into that. That's 2004. Maybe Dunkirk.
I do have Schindler's List is in there.
Yeah, Schindler's List is like that mostly really happened, believe it or not. That's like really fucked up, but that really did happen.
I just wrote 90s World War II movies I'm trying to find. I mean, I guess there was a lot of like there's definitely a lot of Nazi movies in the, because we had like Mother Night, we watched that, but it wasn't really a war movie. And then there was, it's Sophie's Choice. But was that in the 80s or was that in the 90s?
That was like 92 or something.
Okay.
Or no, 82. I'm sorry, 82.
But yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's definitely got to be World War II movies, more than 2 World War II movies in the 90s. Let's see if Internet Movie Database, they can help us. These are all a bunch of... this is a bunch of... Memphis Belle is the first one. There's a bunch of, like, foreign World War II movies, but none.
Yeah, I'm trying to get, like, the American one. Okay, well, Shining Through, that was one. I don't really know that movie very well.
What's Swing Kids? Do you know what that is?
No, I don't. It's like a musical, right?
Yeah, there's a TV movie. I guess maybe a bit TV movie ones, because there was Tuskegee Airmen. That was a TV movie.
Schindler's List would definitely be in this genre.
Yeah,
but the thing with Schindler's List is that was 90% true. Because I've read the 2 books that's based on, and so that wasn't.
Yeah, there's the English Patient.
Yeah, that's one.
What's Paradise Road?
No idea. Mother Night, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, Thin Red Line was 98. Okay, so that was same year as Private Ryan. Okay.
Okay, so I'm not full of shit on that one.
When Trumpets Fade, that was a TV movie.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, maybe there's a lot of like TV movie World War II stuff I'm thinking of. Maybe it was just easier to like raid your army surplus store and make a film on a lower budget.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still sticking with my original thing. Like, was kind of this was like we're gonna throw a bunch of World War II ideas at one concept.
Well, I mean, you still had stuff like we would be seeing Memphis Belle, and then on reruns on TNT, you would have like the Dirty Dozen and all the World War II movies of like the 70s and stuff like that. So
Okay, let's see. I'm trying to put this together in a way. Oh, okay. Imagine like Forrest Gump.
yeah,
What I'm talking about is like we're doing like a Forrest Gump of World War II.
yeah.
And I think it was kind of the last hurrah in the 90s because all the World War II guys were just dying.
Yeah.
It was the 90s. So,
I don't know. Oh man, maybe. There had to have been like World War II TV shows in the 90s. Okay.
yeah, I know they had a couple of Vietnam War TV shows in the 90s.
Yeah. Also like, probably the best, I don't know, maybe. That's my opinion. The best time for the History Channel was the 90s.
Oh yeah,
And it was just World War II all the time.
the Hitler Channel.
Yeah.
That's what they called it. But you learned a lot of cool stuff. I mean, yeah, I mean the 90s was the best time for like I want to learn about World War II, but
Yes.
then the 2000s were the best time for like I want to learn about psychedelic World War II. I want to learn about World War II, but with dinosaurs and Nazis. It's like, oh, okay, well that's yeah. But yeah, that was. But Memphis Belle kind of started a trend.
What's Bomb Girls? I've never heard of that. Have you ever heard of Bomb Girls?
No.
A drama about World War II women at work in a munitions factory. Meg Tilly, Jodie Balfour, Charlotte. Hey, I know who Meg Tilly is.
Yeah, I know who that is. I'm sorry, I just have to move this to get my cord.
Well, anyways, we're sending a probe into space containing the supercut of scenes from the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene from this movie are we shoving into space?
Oh, for this movie, we're shoving into space the scene where the plane lands and explodes. That's kind of a metaphor for this movie. Because even though I enjoyed this movie, it gets like 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I know why. But it's like I also enjoy it. But
yeah, I saw some like blurb about Ebert saying like it's well done, but it's kind of empty. So,
I don't know if empty is the word I'd use, but it's like we're establishing characters and then we're not doing anything.
Yeah, they're not developed. They're just like.
And
like,
then we're flying.
They're characters, and then they survive. That's what they do.
And then we're flying one mission.
Yeah.
That like all the bad stuff that can happen happens on one mission.
Yeah.
And then but we're landing but not exploding. But yeah, the metaphor for this movie is the plane that lands. It's like, yes, they made it. One clap, and then this whole thing explodes. They didn't make it. So yeah.
And then we have Letterbox. Our username is VHE. 1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving Memphis Belle?
I'm giving Memphis Belle 3.
Okay.
3 for effort and 3 for starting a genre. What I'm going to call the World War II composite film, where it's like we're going to do a movie and every bad thing that happened to whatever unit of tank / aircraft / whatever happened in World War II is going to happen to all these guys at once. And you're going to love it and believe it because, you don't know any better.
Do you think Fury is a better realization of this movie?
Well, Fury is the exact same realization of this movie. It's
but
like,
better characterization.
Better characterization for sure. Well, no. Better actors.
Yes.
Let's say better actors for sure. because it's hard to beat Brad Pitt and uh,
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf for like, oh, we're just gonna go nuts in different ways.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt's more of a restrained nuts. Shia LaBeouf is just nuts.
Yeah, he's unrestrained.
But I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I would like to talk to Shia LaBeouf someday about how you're like the greatest, weirdest actor of our time. And I watch all your movies. But yeah.
What else was I? Yeah, I guess I just moved on. For some reason, I feel. Oh yeah, I was gonna ask like. So this is a start of our '90s section. Do you think this is also indicative of '90s movie, or is this something unto itself?
No, this is indicative.
Okay.
This is a trend that starts in the 90s. The 90s are a magical, amazing time. Probably only because I was in my late teens and early 20s when it happened, and that's the time of imagination. Now that I'm, getting into my 50s, it's the time of dying. So the 90s are always going to hold a special place in my
life. Well, it feels like the 90s was like the time for thrillers. So that was kind of like I'm not even sure if we have any thrillers on our upcoming list, but that's what I remember. Like a lot of goofy sci-fi stuff, a lot of just like crazy tries, and then just like sex thrillers just all over the place.
Yeah, the 90s were a time of experimentation and where open weirdness was okay.
Yeah.
Like you could be openly weird and it's like that's cool. Unlike now where it's like I really got to like push it with people. It's like, no, I'm weird. No, I'm really weird. But they don't get it. So
well, you can find our podcast at verhoeveneffect.com. There we have listener support. You can support us at a monthly stipend of 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. You can rate our podcast on whatever platform of your choice. You can rate us whatever you want, but the only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. So remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.